Good morning. Welcome to the September 18, 2018 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. Commissioner Ott will be a few minutes late this morning, otherwise we'll all be here. I'd like to have Pastor Justin Holcomb from the Eastwood Baptist Church. Please come up and lead us in invocation, and I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Those that are willing and able, please stand.
Lord Jesus, we just come before you this morning, thanking you for your mercy, for your grace, for your love to us. And Lord, we read in your word where you tell us over and over how you love us. But Lord, we know without a doubt you've proven that love in coming and living among us, dying on our behalf so we could have salvation, rising again so we could have victory. So we celebrate that victory today. And Lord, we also thank you for granting us another day to try and make a difference in this world for you. And Lord, I read in your word where you say to pray for the leaders of our government. So that's what I want to do this morning, saying thank you for their leadership. I pray that you would grant them wisdom, that you would grant them guidance, that you would protect them. And Lord, whatever needs that they and their family have, I pray in the name of Jesus that you would meet all of those needs physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially as well. Lord, I thank you again for your cross that has offered salvation. Thank you for your resurrection that has brought victory to our lives. I love you, and I say thank you again for loving all of us. Bless this meeting today. In the name of Jesus, and by faith we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor. All right, we have a full agenda today, so John, I'll let you start us off.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today's hearing will be conducted with the following process and procedure. Each case will be called in numerical order. When each case is called, the applicant is requested to stand and signify that they are in attendance. Then we're going to call for opposition to signify that they are here so they can be counted for the official record. After the counting of the opposition, the applicant and any opposition will be asked to come forward to be sworn in so they can present testimony to the Board of Commissioners. The applicant will testify first, and then the opposition, if any, will testify second. It's important to note that each side only gets 10 minutes to state their case of concerns. There is not a rebuttal process, and there's not a process to reserve your time. So convey all your information to the board within your 10-minute time period. Additionally, if more than one person wishes to speak on an issue, you might want to coordinate with each other about what you're going to talk about, because each side only gets 10 minutes, and you don't want to state the same thing over and over. Then after both sides have had their 10-minute presentation period, the board would start to discuss the case at hand. From the discussion, you may ask one or more speakers to come back to the front for questions or comments. After that, the board will make a decision to either approve, deny, hold, or continue the case at hand. There are two cases on today's printed agenda which have been withdrawn and will not be heard today. First case is rezoning case Z55 of 2018, Shiv Agarwal. That case has been withdrawn with prejudice, will not be heard.
John, is the applicant here for that case?
Is the applicant here for Z55? No, ma'am.
Okay, I had prior discussion with them about possibly continuing that case. However, since they're not here, I'm just going to presume they're okay with their withdrawal without prejudice.
Yes, and they did send in a letter for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Second case is LEP 10 of 2018, Aaron O'Driscoll. That case has been withdrawn without prejudice, will not be heard. So LEP 10 will not be heard today. There are a number of cases on today's printed agenda.
John, I just want to make sure, because I heard Commissioner Cupid say that we're going to do Z55 withdrawn without prejudice, right? Because it says with prejudice on my sheet here.
Yes.
So we're doing it without prejudice.
Yeah, and the board would have to vote on that to do it.
I just want to make sure, because, yeah, I just want to make sure we.
Okay, let's go ahead and motion to vote.
I move that we withdraw case C55 without prejudice.
We have a second? Any discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0. Commissioner Ott, in absence.
Thank you. There are a number of cases on today's printed agenda which have been continued or held and will not be heard today. First case is rezoning case Z26 of 2018, Austell Cosmetic Dentistry. The case has been continued by the staff until the November 6, 2018 Planning Commission zoning hearing, so Z26 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z37 of 2018, Winchester Parkway LLC. The case was continued by the staff until the October 2nd, 2018 Planning Commission zoning hearing, so Z37 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z49 of 2018, KO Management Incorporated. That case was held by the Planning Commission until their October 2nd, 2018 Planning Commission zoning hearing, so Z49 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z53 of 2018, Elvia Benitez request was continued by the Planning Commission until their October 2nd, 2018 Planning Commission zoning hearing, so Z53 would not be heard today. Rezoning case Z56 of 2018, Wright Oakdale LLC. That case was continued by the staff until the October 2nd, 2018 Planning Commission zoning hearing, so Z56 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z57 of 2018, John Gaskin. That case was continued by the staff until the October 2nd, 2018 Planning Commission zoning hearing, so Z57 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z58 of 2018, Bobby L. Terrell. That case was continued by the Planning Commission until their October 2nd,
Your buddy.
2018 Planning Commission zoning hearing, so Z58 will not be heard today. Mr. Chairman, Board, there are two cases on today's agenda which are asking their cases be continued until the next month. The applicant is here for these, the applicants are here for these two cases. First case that's asking to be continued is rezoning case Z42, Chance Paris Ferry LLC. The applicant is asking this case be continued until your October hearing date, Mr. Chairman. Motion and vote.
Okay, so I talked to Commissioner Ott this morning, so I told him I would make that motion to continue it until the October zoning hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0.
Thank you. And secondly, other business, item number 35, Buckner Crossroads LLC. The applicant is asking that the board continue this case until your October hearing date.
Which one is that one?
Other business number
Oh,
35.
that's right, yeah. I think that's Commissioner Cupid, right? Yes.
Move that we continue other business item 35.
We have a second. Any discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0. Commissioner Ott.
Thank you. I would like to ask the people in today's audience, if you have a cell phone, please turn the volume off on your cell phones. The ringing does interfere with broadcast presentations. Any person wishing to speak before the Board of Commissioners must file a campaign contribution disclosure statement. If within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of a rezoning application, a campaign contribution totaling $250 or more was made to a current member of the Board of Commissioners. Additional information about this is located on the table in the back of the room. And I want to remind applicants, opposition, or any interested party that information is due to this board the Wednesday prior to the hearing. Any information submitted to the board after the Wednesday due date may or may not be considered by the board at their discretion. Mr. Chairman, Board, there is one request for an early head count. Can I get a show of people here who are opposed to SLUP 10, Buckner Crossroads LLC? Please raise your hands. Let the record show the 6 people here in opposition to SLUP 10. Can I always get a show of people here who are in support of SLUP 10? Please raise your hands. Let the record show there's no one here in support. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to start the consent agenda.
Okay.
Rezoning case Z44, Trayton Homes LLC, request rezoning from R20 OSC and R30 OSC to RSL for the purpose of a residential senior living subdivision in land lots 195 and 196 of the 20th District. The property is located on the east side of Mars Hill Road, north of Stylesboro Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the Zoning Division on August 28, 2018. Letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Kevin Moore, received by the Zoning Division on August 28, 2018, with the following changes. Item number 8, subset A, modified to read leased or rented. Item number 8, subset B, modify to read space areas and detention ponds. Construction hours to be Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., Saturday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., and no work on Sunday or holidays. Staff comments, recommendations, not otherwise in conflict. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z44? Mr. Chairman, there's one person opposed, so we'll pull that off and hear it in its regular order. Rezoning case Z51, the Silver Manor LLC requests a rezoning from NRC to CRC for the purpose of an assembly hall for special events with ancillary offices in land lots 1,000 and 1,001 of the 19th District. The property is located on the northeast side of Floyd Road, southeast of Floyd Drive. The Planning Commission recommends approval, subject to, the Planning Commission recommends deletion to NRC, subject to the following conditions. Letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Garvis L. Sams Jr. dated August 24, 2018. Special exception use for an assembly hall for special events. Hours of operation to be Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. Friday through Sunday from 8 a.m. until midnight. The Architectural Landscape Review Committee shall review any gates to be installed. The District Commissioner shall have final approval of all items under the purview of the Architectural Landscape Review Committee. Should the adjacent property owner not place a fence on the common property line, excluding the 49.94 feet in the southeast corner, or at any time remove the fence, there shall be a privacy fence installed along the common property line by the owner of this property. Fence changes shall occur within 90 days of the Board of Commissioners' final decision. When the existing fence is relocated, additional fencing will be required. Additional fencing shall be consistent with the existing fencing. As an alternative, new fencing can be used to replace the existing fence. Fence changes shall occur within 90 days of the Board of Commissioners' final decision. Fire Department comments and recommendations, Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations, and Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. The applicant representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z51? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, Commissioner Cuber's working real hard on this one, so I just want to make sure that the staff concerns have been addressed from the initial time when it was first submitted to now. I'm assuming that those concerns have been
Yes.
discussed and everything. Okay, I just want to make sure. We're good. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Chairman, I do have a modification to a stipulation. And speaking with the applicant, they have a couple of events that they're planning that do conflict with the hours of operation Monday through Thursday. So I would like to extend that to 11 p.m. so they're not in violation of their zoning condition.
So
And that's the only change.
Okay, make that modification to 11 p.m. Monday
Yes,
through
sir.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay. Rezoning case Z52, Joseph W. Cardis II and Carol M. Cardis request a rezoning from R80 to R40 for the purpose of a single-family house in land lot 1002 of the 17th District. The property is located on the west side of Timberland Drive, south of Hallmark Drive. The Planning Commission recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Proposed garage to be architecturally compatible with the existing home and be approved by the District Commissioner. Size of the proposed garage be limited to 832 square feet. Location to be as shown on the site plan received by the Zoning Division on May 11, 2018. The setback of an accessory structure to be reduced from 100 feet to 11 feet from the north property line for this structure only, with final placement plan to be approved by the District Commissioner. Fire Department comments and recommendations, Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations, and Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z52? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Rezoning case Z59, Oberrien Inc. requests a rezoning from LI to LRO for the purpose of a daycare facility in land lot 44 of the 18th District. The property is located on the southeast corner of Veterans Memorial Highway and Cooks Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the Zoning Division on July 24, 2018, with the final approval by the District Commissioner. Letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Garvis L. Sams Jr. dated July 24, 2018. Landscape plan to be approved by the District Commissioner. There shall be an architectural landscape review committee which shall be charged with the review of any proposed landscaping, signage, fencing, and building architecture. The committee shall consist of a representative of the Mapleton Improvement Coalition, a representative of the applicant, and a representative from Cobb County Community Development Agency. The District Commissioner shall have final approval of all the items. Compliance with the Veterans Memorial Highway Guidelines, Planning Division comments and recommendations, Fire Department comments and recommendations, Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations, and Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z59? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Just an emphasis on one of the stipulations. I'd like to add, District Commissioner had final approval of building architecture inclusive of, but not limited to, elevation, material, and color. As the condition written in there is somewhat vague to say that there's a default to what was presented at the date of the meeting. I just prefer to just have a more concrete stipulation.
So for materials and color.
Building architecture inclusive of, but not limited to, material, color, and elevation.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving into special land use permits on the consent agenda. SLEP 9, Jubilee Christian Church International Incorporated, request a special land use permit for the purpose of an expansion of a church and a school in land lots 717, 718, and 764 of the 19th District. The property is located on the north side of Macedonia Road, west of Ernest Barrett Parkway. The Planning Commission recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Parks F. Huff dated August 29, 2018, with the following changes. Item number 8, subset B, delete in its entirety. Item number 8, subset C, delete in its entirety. District Commissioner to approve the final landscape plan. District Commissioner to approve the building elevations. Fire Department comments and recommendations. Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. And Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to SLUP 9? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And moving into other business cases on the consent agenda. Other business, item number 44 is to consider a stipulation amendment for Radio Property Group regarding rezoning application Z173 of 1999 for property located on the south side of Piedmont Road, west of New South Drive, in land lots 517 and 564 of the 16th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to deletion of stipulation number 2 from Garvis L. Sams Jr. letter dated November 8, 1999. Property to be used for a bank or financial institution, a group home, nursery school, a child daycare, or a professional office. And all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. Is the applicant present? Yes. Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 44?
John, Commissioner Burrow has a comment.
Oops, one more. No, no special contractor use needs to be included. And all previous stipulations not in conflict to remain in effect. And then we have a note that pawn, title pawn, and check cashing not allowed in LRO.
Okay. So add that as a clerk's.
And everybody was agreeable with this language.
Okay.
I just have one question. Are you I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let the record show there's no one opposed to that case. Other business, item number 45 is to consider a stipulation amendment for Alexis Kinsey regarding rezoning application number 191 of 1978 for property located on the south side of Johnson Ferry Road, east of East Cobb Drive, in land lot 901 of the 16th District. The staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Stipulation 4 from other business, item number 39 from September 19, 2017 be deleted. Letter from East Cobb Civic Association attached to Jill Flam's email dated September 16th, 2018, and all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 45? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Other business item number 46 is to consider a site plan amendment for KJT Properties LLC regarding rezoning application Z92 of 2015 for property located on the northwesterly side of Childers Road, south of Monette Drive, in land lot 28 of the First District. Staff recommends approval, subject to front setbacks to be 25 feet, with the rear setbacks to be 40 feet for lots 2 through 7, and all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 46? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And lastly, other business item number 47 is to consider a site plan amendment for Broadlands Homeowners Association Incorporated regarding rezoning application Z89 of 1993 for property located on the north side of White Blossom Court, north of Willow Oak Trail, and land lots 86 and 137 of the 19th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Letter from Mr. Rick Miller dated September 4th, 2018. Site plan received September 4th, 2018. And all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 47? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And that completes the consent agenda, Mr. Chairman of the Board.
Okay. So I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as revised.
Second.
Any discussion? Call a question. Passes 4-0, Commissioner Ott in absence. All right, so we're gonna go back. We're gonna start with the, you wanna start with Z44, since we pulled off consent, or do you want to do another order?
We'll just do it in order. We'll do Z32 first. Just
Okay.
go through it.
All right,
Rezoning case Z32, Inline Communities LLC, request rezoning from R20 to RSL for the purpose of residential senior living, non-supportive, in land lots 579, 605, and 606 of the 19th District. The property is located on the east side of Old Lost Mountain Road, on the north side of Meek Road, south of Gated Meadows Drive. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z32? Please raise your hands. Let the record show there's 7 people here in opposition to rezoning case Z32. Can I get a show of people here who are in support of rezoning case Z32? Please raise your hands.
good morning, James.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Let the record show there's 14 people here in support of rezoning case Z32. All those folks wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Before we start, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to ask for a bit of indulgence. I've asked the county attorney to stop me at 9 minutes because I do have an adjacent landowner who wants to speak in the support time, so.
I could stop you at 2.
Well, if I can poll the votes right now, then we could. But thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, for the record, I am here today on behalf of Inline Communities Z32 of 2018. I want to point you to the overhead slide. There's the site. It's currently zoned R20. It's approximately 52 acres. Fronts on Old Lost Mountain Road and directly across from Moon Road. And on this zoning is RSL request, and I wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of who the property owners are and what they've done over the past 100 years. The Taylor family sold 20 acres to McEachern High School at a very discounted rate so that they could build the parking lot and lacrosse fields that are there. And they're part of the extended McEachern family who donated all of the land that McEachern High School is on now and continues to operate a current foundation which gives yearly and makes McEachern one of the first-class schools in Cobb County. So if you added, the staff has said 91 homes could be built as zoned. If you added back in the 20 acres that they sold to the school district, you could basically get the density they're asking here today, which actually meets the future land use map without a density bonus. And this is what I'm talking about. The current land use is low-density residential. The RSL density bonus would allow 4 units to the acre, but Z32 meets the future land use map and doesn't seek any of the density bonus. Now, this has been a work in progress, a lot of interaction with the community. So I want to point you to the initial zoning plan that was filed. It had 128 homes and had a 20-foot buffer against Marion Park HOA. Didn't have individual landscape plans. It didn't have a buffer on Meek Road. And most importantly, in this case, the entrance was not aligned with Moon Road. But the months of community input has made Z32 better. It's produced good results, and I think what you see before you today, one of the major things is we continued the case to acquire the additional property that was required to align Moon Road, and I've also agreed to donate the right-of-way that's needed on our side of the road for a roundabout if it comes in the future. A lot of the community talked about that, and of course those are shown to reduce by 76% injury collisions. We've agreed to enhance the options and to detailed landscaping for the entrance in individual homes. We agreed instead of a 20 to a 50-foot buffer against the HOA to the rear, and numerous voluntary stipulations not provided by RSL or even R20. All of those are in a new stipulation letter today that's dated September 18, 2018, and it includes restrictions on leasing, covenants, underground utilities, environmentally sensitive lighting, and many other things that are not in the code. And so here's the plan you see before you today. 123 for-sale homes. The entrance is aligned. The roundabout there is identified. Marion Park subdivision to the rear now has a 50-foot landscape buffer. 20-foot is required, and an additional buffer on Moon Road. This is an example of what you see before you of the agreed to detailed landscaping for all of those properties that you see identified. And these are ones that have been shown and approved by the adjacent homeowners. Goes into great detail and is designed to address the specific needs of the adjacent homeowners. What you see before you is the proposed elevations. The price point will have an average sales price of $350,000 with some homes over $400,000. They will all have 2-car garages and a set in the new STIP letter after discussions with the district commissioner. They will range from 2,000 to 3,000 square feet and up. They will have options for a 2-bedroom minimum with sunroom and 3rd bedroom on the 1st floor, and then a 4th upstairs bedroom and bathroom. You see again some of the elevations. There are no attached homes, even though RSL allows that. And you see examples of homes that are actually built and on the ground. What you're seeing now is interior pictures. Here is an option showing the bathroom and sitting area and bedroom. That's an option on the 2nd floor. It's going to have interiors that have been stipulated to reflect this quality. And those are all attached to the STIP letter. Now I'm here before you today with 78 signatures that have been filed into the record. And these are all directly impacted neighbors in the area who support this Z32 as presented, and those have all been filed into the record. Of course, all of that support came after reaching the agreements that are included in the stipulation letter and discussions with area neighbors. So what you see there on you is shaded. You'll see the Z32 mark there, and I've shaded on the map. All of that is where it shows where all of the 78 signatures came from. You'll see the massive green area there, the people most directly impacted off of Moon Road. And that shows, again, 78 signatures of directly impacted neighbors. Now, I have been made aware that Marion Park HOA has some opposition to this case. I want to point out to the board that the entrance to Marion subdivision is not on Old Lost Mountain. It's 1 mile away, and the residents will likely not even drive by our entrance. What I'm talking about there, you can see where our entrance is on Old Lost Mountain Road. You can see where the entrance to the Marion Park is there on New Macklin Road. And so they would not access by our entrance. The Z32 price points are not a guess. When we identified that average sales price, identical homes in Falls Crest, Cobb County, are almost completely sold, priced at $373,000 right now. Also, when you look, I would argue that it's comparable to the homes in the sales price in Marion Park. And these are two sales that were done this year, real life examples, and they are under $400,000. And if you note, those are two that are immediately adjacent to our site. Homes in Z32, I'd also point out, have less square footage and yet very comparable sales prices, approximately 175 square feet now that we've gone up versus approximately $89 price per square foot. It's a different product. It holds its value. I would also say that an opposition email from the HOA board does not equate to all the residents. Some of the signatures you saw there today include residents in Marion Park. I've also sent 272 notice letters and did not get a negative response from any individual resident in Marion Park. And I found oftentimes happy people don't bother to sign petitions because they have other things to do. That being said, we've still addressed almost all of Marion Park's concerns, starting with an August 18 letter and now replaced by a September 18th letter. We've addressed the price points. We've addressed the setback that they had at STIP 26, the lighting. We addressed that. The entrance done, rental is for sale only. And the density, remember again, is the only thing that they had an issue with that we did not address. And the density complies with the future land use map as we sit here today without any change. Why on RSL? There's 21,209 households in District 4 over the age of 55, and that number goes up in 2002. In the 202 days since this application was filed, 2,020,000 people have turned 65 in the United States. The demand is there. It is also located close to parks, the aquatic center, and nearby health care. You see they're listed as all within the immediate area. I want to point out that we have unanimous support by the mayor and council of the city of Powder Springs, who submitted this resolution asking the board to approve this case as presented. Staff analysis asks that you is recommending yes. They've noted it meets the future land use guidelines. It preserves more open space and buffers, not causing excessive burdensome use. PC recommended approval, and we ask that you follow the PC, Powder Springs, and 78 neighbors, and approve Z32.
Thank you.
Now, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Ty Mitchell.
Good morning, Board.
Good morning.
My name is Ty Mitchell. I am the property owner of 2619 Old Lost Mountain Road. I've lived there for 25 years. I want to thank the board this morning for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this morning. I speak on behalf of the 78 residents that have signed the petition that's affected by the development of the Taylor Farm property. This morning I'm speaking in favor of the RSL development. There are 12 properties directly affected by the proposed development accessed from the Old Lost Mountain Road side. They encompass 3 sides of this development, and we have spoken to everyone. All the property owners are in favor and in the support of the RSL development. The people who live on Old Lost Mountain Road are, in my opinion, the most affected by this development, because we're going to bear almost 100% of the burden of this development as it regards to the traffic. Currently, it's very difficult in the mornings leaving our houses during peak traffic hours because of the traffic. Typically, in an RSL development, each household will only have 1 to 2 cars, and they don't normally drive during the peak traffic hours, as opposed to if this was coming as a single-family residential community. Most seniors try to avoid the traffic by getting out, and they get out during the off-peak hours, which means it will have less of a noise and traffic impact on our Old Lost Mountain Road. During the peak traffic hours, a single-family resident community are mostly made up of working families, oftentimes who have kids that drive as well, which will greatly affect the traffic during these peak hours. There are many other positives to this RSL development, and that is that they will have a strong HOA, as already been mentioned, and strong covenants. Also, with that RSL development, the properties are maintained by a lawn maintenance crew, which means the yards are cut on the same day, and the landscaping is always maintained.
Okay,
And
sir. Thank you very much.
that's it. Thank you.
I appreciate it. And I'm going to allow the opposition 11 minutes also to respond. So those who are opposed, just ask you to come up here, and you have 11 minutes to present your case.
Good morning. My name is Edward Peterson, and I live in Merriam Park. My address 2563 Cashel Lane. I want to thank you all for allowing us to speak this morning. As a community, we want to thank the developer for meeting with us. We've met several times with the developer, and we appreciate all the concessions that the developer has put in place for this proposed development. But our still main concern is the density. As a commission, you denied a Z43 because of density, and we feel the same issue occurs here in this development. We feel that the density here at 91 homes would be much better suited, comparable to what we have at the Merriam Park, which is 68 homes and approximately the same size of whole properties. The other thing that we also would like to mention is that for schools, it is our belief that as a district, our schools as well as community would benefit from the added infusion of not only revenue, but also parental engagement for varying activities. Our schools and community are making great strides, and now is not the time to pull back from the momentum. Changing the zoning will result in a lost opportunity for the area. For the reasons stated above, we believe these concerns rise to the level of rejecting the proposal submitted. We believe a density of 91 single-family homes at the stated entry price would still provide an exceptional return on investment for the building given the current housing shortage. Moreover, it is our belief that our proposed change to the planned development would continue our home price appreciation, school revenue funding, and enhance community engagement. So therefore, we feel that the density is still the main issue for this. We again agree with all the other concessions that have been in place, the buffers and so forth, the green space as well. But we feel the density is still a major issue. And as a reminder, you did decline Z43 for that same reason, for the density. That's about a mile away from where we are, where Merriam Park and Lost Mountain is.
And good morning. My name is Robert Richards. I live at 2759 Cary Court, and I've been communicating with Ms. Cupid by way of email on much of the issues that our board president has talked about. I just want to reaffirm not only what he said, but the discussion of 68 homes in our community has not been fully addressed. I will tell you that the homeowners in our recent HOA meeting not only realized that what they were provided in terms of information was simply one-sided. When we provided the information that Ed just talked about, the impact on the schools, the comparative density versus the, Z43, they were not aware of those disparities in the staff's assessment. More importantly, we take objection to the assessment of the pricing. We believe that the numbers on the pricing relative to our homes certainly is not accurate. Now, we do agree that the per square foot price is significant in what they're doing. And so we don't oppose their efforts to develop the community. What we're concerned about are the global issues that we talked about, impact on schools. And the fact that just not even a mile across Macklin, there's a similar community that is much, much higher density in terms of how they're laid out. Their homes are much smaller property, but yet still this commission disapproved that. Ours is significantly larger in terms of property, in terms of land mass, and homes. And our prices are in the 400s. So again, we support development of the community. We're not here to say don't develop anything. We're just simply saying try to understand our concern relative to density and impact on our community in the global perspective. That's all we're asking. And I'll yield back.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition to this application? Please, sir.
Good morning. My name is Bud White. I live at 2419 Old Lost Mountain Road, Powder Springs. And I have a petition that's signed by 100 people. And the petition speaks to traffic, traffic, traffic. We are concerned about this development and the negative impact on the traffic glut that already exists on Old Lost Mountain Road. It is our opinion that traffic improvements should be made prior to the proposed development being built. We ask that a right turn lane be installed at the north end of Old Lost Mountain Road where it intersects with Macklin Road, and also at the south end of Old Lost Mountain Road where it intersects with Richard Sailor's Parkway. This would allow traffic to turn right on a red signal and maybe alleviate the traffic jams that occur at both these locations. We also ask for you to consider that there are 6 subdivisions on either side of Old Lost Mountain Road. Those subdivisions are McEachern Chase, Battlegate, Legend Hollow, where there was a traffic fatality earlier this year at the entrance of Legend Hollow where it intersects with Old Lost Mountain Road at Macedonia Road. Several traffic accidents have also occurred at the intersection of Old Lost Mountain and Macedonia Road. The other subdivisions are Country Walk, Pembroke, and Reserve at Old Lost Mountain. In talking with the DOT, they informed me that 7,500 vehicles use Old Lost Mountain every day. Now, we're talking about a 2 3/4 mile stretch of road between Macklin Road on the north end and Richard Sailor's on the south end. 7,500 cars. We have people that use Old Lost Mountain that ride their bicycles to the Silver Comet Trail. We have a lot of people walking on the sidewalks. And we have roads that are affected by this traffic with Gaydon Road, Brand Road, Moon Road, Meek, Ship Road, Stedding Road, Macedonia, and Hunter Road. All these intersect with Old Lost Mountain Road. If this proposed development is improved, we understand that it will become a 2-year build-out. Now, I was unaware of the traffic circle that the gentleman said was going to be offered. That will be a tremendous help with traffic there. In the morning, the kids from McEachern use that road, and with one entrance and exit only, a traffic circle or a 4-way stop would be greatly needed. Traffic circle would be great. 2 years to build out. We're going to, the whole community will be subject to construction noise. McEachern High School and Varner Elementary School traffic will be affected by the increase. The RSL will produce, although I know it will be minimal. You know, I have heard a lot about the DOT traffic studies that suggest that the traffic will be a negative impact from this RSL. But I live with it every day. I see it every day. I live at the corner of Old Lost Mountain and Gaydon Road, and there are times when I can't get out of my driveway. As Ty mentioned, a lot of people have the same problems on the roads that they live with. And Old Lost Mountain has become a cut-through, as Ty mentioned earlier, because people are using these shortcut apps, and with that, traffic's only going to increase on Old Lost Mountain Road. We recognized that the Taylor family, and I say we, the people that are on my petition, has a right to sell a beautiful piece of property. It's a gorgeous piece of property. And RSL would be what we would like, but I just want you to please give our concerns some thought, and let's address the traffic. If you're going to vote in favor of this development, I would appreciate it, and everybody on my petition would appreciate it if you would address the traffic issues out there. And I thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. White. Mr. White, did you like to submit your petition for the record? Yeah. Would anybody else like to speak in opposition to this zoning application? Seeing none, I'll turn the floor over to Commissioner Cupid.
Thank you, Chairman, and I do want to thank everyone here who has been involved with this case. As was presented today, there have been opinions in the full range of this matter, from residents in the area opposing any development on the site to those seeking for it to be zoned as single family. I do find that the proposal here today for RSL non-supportive is a meeting somewhat in the middle and addressing some of these issues. And I'm going to go through my reasoning for that this morning. Before I do that, though, I would like to ask DOT a question based off of the last speaker before I go into my reasoning.
Ashley White with the Department of Transportation.
Good morning.
Amy Diaz, Department of Transportation.
Good morning, Ashley and Amy.
Morning.
Good to see the duo up there. I do have a question with respect to traffic impact of a single-family development versus an RSL development. Can you share with us this morning the traffic impact that could be generated from a single-family household versus an RSL household?
It's very roughly about a third during the peak hours.
Okay.
So a single-family home has a generalized trip generation of 10 trips per day. A detached single living is lower than that. It is roughly, I'm looking at this, it's probably, I don't have a ratio here, but
There's a daily.
there's a, yeah, that's compared to that. So it's roughly about four or five trips per day.
Okay.
So it's about half of the daily trips, but it's even lower during the peak hours. That's the 1/3 I was talking about.
Okay, I see that. And there was a request for analysis of Old Lost Mountain at both Macklin Road and at Richard Sailors Parkway. Has consideration been given towards a right-hand turn lane for either one of those intersections?
The traffic study did not extend all the way to Sailors Parkway,
Okay,
but it did go up to Macklin. We have heard the community's request for that right turn lane, and we have let both the district engineer and traffic ops know of that request.
okay,
There's no current project programmed for that, but it is something that they're considering.
okay. How can we have that assessed?
We have given them the traffic information from this study as kind of a baseline, and then that would be something that if you were interested, you would contact your district engineer and have them have
Okay.
traffic ops look at it.
Yes, I would like to have that assessed to address the ongoing traffic concerns that are in the area.
Certainly.
I happen to be in this part of the community, and during rush hour, my children actually go to school 3 days a week over here, so I'm there 3 days a week and see this firsthand. So just would appreciate some assessment of the community's requests.
Macklin specifically, or both intersections?
Both intersections. I'm over in the Mackland area, but both intersections would be helpful.
Okay.
There was also a comment made about a four-way stop at the entrance to this community or a possible roundabout. Can you speak more to that, please?
So the four-way stop was analyzed as part of one of the traffic studies. Just looking at the traffic volumes coming out, we could have generalized that it was not going to be viable because the traffic volumes aren't balanced. Unsurprisingly, the volumes coming off Moon Road and out of this development are much, much lower than those on Old Lost Mountain. Usually when you have a four-way stop, you try to have balanced traffic volumes in all directions. It's one of the reasons why they're one of the more rare traffic control treatments. As far as the potential roundabout, they are dedicating the needed land on their side in case that improvement is identified in the future. The right-of-way on the other side of the road is very tight. We have made both the district engineer and traffic ops aware of that potential.
Okay.
And so what we got back from traffic operations is it can be put on the list for evaluation, but there are a lot of places in the county that are ahead of it.
Okay, sure, understandable. And I'm presuming with that evaluation, certain metrics have to be hit to consider a roundabout in this location.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And one other thing about the four-way stop, when you do a four-way stop, the queues on Old Lost Mountain get up to about 20 during the peak hours. So it's very significant.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I do want to thank the applicant and Mr. Richards for meeting between now and the last meeting where we continued this case. I've also received correspondence from different members of the community, both in opposition and in support of this application. Looking at the site is zoned already for low-density residential. It's not a question of whether or not development can take place. And this has been a continuing conversation I've had with those who are just opposed to any development at all on this site. The question is, with the development that can occur, how can we modify or lessen the burden to the residents that are in that area? And listening to our traffic staff speak this morning, it is shared that the impact of RSL on traffic is significantly less than a single-family development, which provides some relief to the residents in the area, contrasting that to if they were to have just a general single-family development. I too have concerns for the global issues of the area. McEachern is a very desirable school. In fact, we've had a lot of development in that area, touting the school as a benefit to those who are moving in the area. So I have concerns about how I balance single-family development with the growing interest for senior development in this area. I have to share for the residents in this area, this is not going to be the first case that you see before you with respect to senior development, as I've had communications with other developers and even our housing authority looking at this area for more senior development. But I am concerned because I want McEachern to continue to thrive, and it continues to thrive by having families that are in that area that are excited about that school. So I want you to know that I'm thinking about that, and I'm weighing that as I'm communicating with developers, and I'm sharing that with them too. So I do not want you to think that this application necessarily opens the door for every new development to come into be of this nature. But what I have seen in this community is that most of the new development, if not all, has been single-family development. I do not see a development of this type that is south of Mackland. And looking at the traffic impact, looking at the price range, even though that's not really supposed to be a consideration of the commissioners, I do recognize there has been some concern about the property values. And the applicant has made some concessions in improving the elevations, improving the material, and also now increasing the square footage of the homes and the price point shared. Certainly, is comparable, is less, although somewhat comparable to the two other homes that were sold. I must share that there are homes of significantly greater value in the Marion Park subdivision. So I do want to recognize that. And it is my desire to see the community continue to be supported. There were some concerns with respect to this development about buffering, and as was shared, if this development were to move as zoned, that there could be no buffer. No buffer would necessarily be required, but for certain residents, there'll be as much as a 50-foot setback between Marion Park and this new development. I also appreciate the applicant working with the community and also communicating with Powder Springs about the alignment of the entrance to just improve the flow of traffic and how it's feeding onto and off of Old Lost Mountain Road. I did receive the updated STIP letter today, and I do have one question with respect to the applicant that I'd like to address. Yes, hi. In the presentation provided this morning, it said that all homes would be for sale, and then when I'm looking at the STIP letter, it provides that up to 10% can be leased. Can you please clarify?
Excuse me. That is the typical rental restriction that is put on. And the reason for that is all homes will be for sale. But after that for sale period, if you had, for example, a senior pass away and there had to be a period of transition, that is put in there to address that issue. But that would only be on a temporary basis.
Right.
And all the homes will be for sale at first, and the covenants will address that and restrict it to that purpose.
Okay. What I'd like to do, because this is 123 lots, is to limit that to 10 homes.
Okay,
And if we can,
that's fine with us. We'll,
okay. And I know I've addressed the increased square footage, which is in the STIP letter. Is there anything I'm missing? Is there anything that I'm missing?
oh, yeah, I thought we talked, and I forgot to put in because it was prepared this morning, that the district commissioner will have final approval of the landscape plan.
Okay. And in the original application and then in subsequent emails, I received different elevations. The newer elevations had more material mixture and,
Right.
and some additional detail, and it was certainly more attractive than what was initially offered. I would like to craft a stipulation to review elevations just to ensure that what's being built is comparable to the latter elevations and not the initial elevations.
Right, we put that in there. I put that in there for you to have
It's
final
in-
approval of all single-family homes.
Wonderful. So then today we're just looking at the landscaping
Right.
part, and the 10.
And the 10
rental.
homes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So much paper. With that, I move that the board approve Z32 with the additional stipulations that rental be limited to 10 units and that the district commission will have final approval of landscaping. The approval is also based on the updated STIP letter dated September 18th, 2018, provided by the applicant. All PC comments and recommendations to be included that are not otherwise in conflict. All staff comments and recommendations to be included not otherwise in conflict.
I'll second, I have a question.
We have a second, then Commissioner Rutherford.
Mr. Valley, if you don't mind, sir. The normal language about rentals once the development is, that would be an HOA requirement, and we put that in, I don't know.
That would be enforced by the HOA, which is required under the federal housing guidelines that allow for senior living. They've got to file a report no later than every 2 years that monitors all of that, among other things. So that would be enforced by the HOA.
Well, my only concern is that the standard language is no more than 10%, and I was wondering if you can change that language because of the federal guidelines about a restricted 55 and up, no children kind of.
I think that And that, you're right, that is the standard language. But that is not the percentage required by federal law, as long as we are doing what is required by, I think it's the HOPA Act is what the actual title is. Then I think we could, if the Commissioner wanted to restrict it to 10 homes. That goes further than the federal law, but I don't think it would violate it.
Okay, well, only concern is that we don't get down the road again. I just wanted to bring that out, that whatever supersedes should be the one that we apply.
And I don't have any problem with that. It's typically the board practice to put in 10%, and I've limited it before. But to make sure that we're not in conflict with federal guidelines, I would just ask that we condition that any conditions of this zoning not be in conflict with any overarching federal rules for this site.
Yeah. Thank you.
I just want to, I'm sorry, I forgot the name of the gentleman you brought with you for your,
Right.
what was it, Mr. Richards?
Mr. Mitchell.
Mr. Mitchell. I want to thank Mr. Mitchell and Mr. White today for their comments. They clearly took the time to prepare them and bring us some very interesting information and facts. And I think that they made this whole case a lot more robust by their participation. I also support Commissioner Cupid. If we'd left this at R20, we could have probably put roughly 100 houses here. And I think that's the point that a lot of people, including me last year, didn't realize, is that once you approve the future land use map, sometimes all you need is the permit to start breaking ground.
Right.
And you've worked with the community here to keep that number down below that a little bit.
Yes.
And every little bit helps.
Yes, Chairman, and that's the most significant point that I think I missed in my analysis, the community's concern about density. The future land use map allows up to 2.5 homes per acre to be built on this site, which would have generated a higher number of homes if we were to max out at that future land use map. So the actual number of homes that's being built is less than that, and it's also less than what could be built under residential senior living, which I think provides up to 4 homes.
4 units an acre would be
units
the
per acre.
density bonus we were entitled to, but it's under 2.5.
Yeah.
One quick. Sure. Also, just for the record, several people referenced C-43 that we denied last month. That did not meet the future land use map for that area. So the comparisons are really not comparable there, that this one does meet the future land use. The other one was seeking to exceed the future land use map for the area. So you always have to take each case on an individual basis, and even though you may reference other cases, each case is completely unique. So.
Okay, with that, I'll call the question. Passes 4-0.
Okay, rezoning case Z40, Jim Chapman Communities, request rezoning from R20 to RSL, non-supportive for the purpose of an age-restricted independent senior living facility in land lots 284 and 285 of the 16th district. The property is located on the north side of North Booth Road, the west side of Billis Ferry Road, and the southeasterly side of I-575. The representative is present for this case. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z40? Please raise your hands.
No opposition?
Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z40? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Commissioner Burrow has a comment first, John.
Z40 has been a long process here, and it was, as of Friday, a candidate for consent. However, I've had a couple of emails that I think need clarification, to a couple emails over the weekend in opposition. We do have the Bells Ferry Civic Association here in support, but because of clarification and openness, I'd like to hear the case.
Sure, absolutely. So I'll give Mr. Sams 2 minutes. Is that enough time? Just kidding.
No, it sounds like as much or more than you gave Mr. Bally, so I'm fine with that. But
No, you have the full 10 minutes, Mr. Sams.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. For the record, my name is Garvis Sams of the firm of Sams, Larkin, Huff, and Bally, and I represent Jim Chapman Communities concerning this application for rezoning. I have Mr. Chapman with me, who's was just recently named Atlanta Home Builder of the Year. And also we have with us today Chad and Teresa Eppel of SEI. They are engineers, our consultants, both from a traffic perspective and a land use planning perspective. And so the four of us are here to respond to any questions you may have. We have unanimous approval from the Planning Commission. We have the support of the the county staff at 178 units. We're now at 155. We also had no public opposition at the Planning Commission meeting. And as Commissioner Burrow so aptly put it, through the graces of the conversations that we've had with both her staff and the Bells Ferry Civic Association, we've gained the Bells Ferry Civic Association's support for this project as well. This is a piece that's shown on your monitors that has been looked at for just literally decades by a cavalcade of different kind of developers, all wanting to max it out, mostly with commercial or apartments or the things that just simply weren't appropriate, notwithstanding this property's contiguity to I-575. What Mr. Chapman proposes, though, is a rezoning of this property to the RSL non-sportive classification for purposes of 155 homes. We were at 178, went to 162, now we're at 155 homes, which your staff supports. That's an overall density of 4.3, which considered in the proximity of major transit corridors and the demographics you just talked about in the inline communities case on Old Lost Mountain Road. You understand that the lack of impact by this demographic or this particular populace on the county's infrastructure. The operative stipulation letters here are a stipulation letter dated August 17th, which is revised. And then another operative one is the revised traffic impact study and revised site plan, which was submitted on October the 30th. You each have those. The lots here are split almost evenly between 40 and 50 footers in width, which is typical you see in a market market approach. And there's nobody better, not to denigrate any other RSL developers who are here, but there's nobody better in figuring out the marketability of RSL. We've made dramatic changes in position on density, on architecture. We have moved our sole point of ingress and egress off of Bells Ferry Road to North Booth Road in a position that is recommended by your DOT, is desired by the Bells Ferry Civic Association, and concluded by SEI to be the most appropriate location for points of ingress and egress. This has been pending for approximately 5 months, and it's a good thing that it has. We had to continue for a 2-month period because of the change in location in order to get good traffic counts with school back in session to make sure that those were accurate. This will be 155 non-supportive homes. The max density under RSL in a LDR here is 55%. We have done, and not just an analysis, but an in-depth examination of this. We're at 40% impervious surface, which is phenomenal. I know it looks more than that, but it is not. It's at 40%, which is 15% below the max. These houses will range from 1,600 to 2,400. They'll be in the 400s at the end of the day with add-ons and preferences by Mr. Chapman's buyers. We exceed guest parking ratio requirements, and you can see that they're strategically and meaningfully placed throughout the development, many of which are with the amenity package, which includes a pool, clubhouse, some gardens, and some other amenities as well. Similarly, because this is in 2 basins, the stormwater management features are also located where they should be, according to our conversations with Mr. Braden and Chad and Teresa Eppel and their hydrological analysis of this as well. These are private streets built to the county's design and detail specifications, but the mandatory HOA will be responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of the streets, fencing, landscaping, open space, sidewalks, community areas, stormwater detention, the entrance and signage, the lighting, irrigation, and landscaping for that signage, and then, of course, the amenities that are shown. So the price points to be a member of this HOA, which is mandatory, will be somewhere around $250 to $300 a month. Considering the price points, that's commensurate with what you would expect for this kind of development. The landscaping, we submitted or handed out a package to you which shows a typical or a prototypical approach to the landscaping on our various frontages, which gives you an idea, since we've got triple road frontage, of what will be not only necessary, but we think attractive to set apart this as another signature Chapman development. The landscaping will consist primarily of evergreens, cryptomeria, arborvitae, and other long-lasting but evergreen vegetation. Typically with RSLs, there is a 10-foot strip that's required around the property for landscaping purposes. We have doubled that. The entirety of the perimeter of the property is 20 feet, which includes the landscaping components to which I just referred. You also have a set of circumstances whereby the signage that will be located, will be entered into that landscape plan. Of course, we're meeting all the recommendations of the water system, which may require a sewer flow study, which may require a sewer capacity study, the granting of access utility easements for the interior streets, which of course are private, but again, built to the county's design and detailed specifications. The Stormwater Management Division, because this is into hydrological basins, it complicates things a bit regarding the conveyance of stormwater, but we've captured those well and also eliminated the sheet flow runoff on the property and directed that into the proper set of protocols. And so these detention ponds will have elevated storage. You can't theoretically or philosophically or hydrologically move stormwater from one basin to another, so we've taken care of it in that respect. We've already done a pre-development hydrological study of Lake Lanier, which is 2 miles downstream. That wasn't something that was required by the county, but it was making sure we covered ourselves, and we'll do that afterwards to determine the amount of sedimentation that was in or is within that lake. All of DOT's recommendations we adhere to, the latest of which showed the southbound dedicated turning lane, which was really important to the BFCAN staff, most particularly DOT. We're voluntarily donating and conveying right-of-way on North Booth and Bells Ferry Road commensurate with what is required, one of which is an arterial, the other of which is a collector. And also the installation of sidewalks around the perimeter of the property, 5 feet in width, and sidewalks on both sides of the interior of the development for the streets that will accommodate our residents, and also be streets that can accommodate public safety vehicles with the pounds per square inch that are required, and also with a maneuverability that's allowed by way of the radius or the radii we have internally. The traffic impact study has been tweaked, revised, modified, and is fully up to speed. The last time, of course, being August 30th. The sync profiles that go along with that have been analyzed by your staff. Ms. Ashley White, who's a PE civil engineer, a review engineer with DOT, weighed in at the Planning Commission meeting, and I think put any traffic or transportation issues at rest with her comments. So one variance we're asking for, and it's a variance that you're going to hear on the next case. It's a variance request you hear on virtually all of the RSL non-supportive cases, and that is asking for a reduction between 15 feet to 10 feet between homes. We discussed this with BFCA and the commissioner in terms of any potential precedent, and we found in each one of your districts, bar none, that has been granted, not unwittingly or unknowingly, but purposely and with a design criteria in mind that fits this demographic and the market that Mr. Chapman targets. We are agreeable to all life safety issues. We are conducting or allowing Sherry George and her group, the Georgia Native Plant Society, to do a plant rescue. We've got the minor modifications set up in the stipulation letter, which are consistent with what you have approved as a Board of Commissioners. And we'd like to publicly thank the District Commissioner of the BFCA and everyone involved for their time and effort, and we respectfully request that this be approved. Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Burrow.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Since there's no opposition, I'll turn this over to Commissioner Burrow.
And I'm probably going to reiterate some of the things that you pointed out. First, I'd like to ask Amy and Ashley to come up. You had revised comments based on the applicant agreeing to put in a right turn lane on Bell's Ferry to turn right onto North Booth. And according to these numbers, it looks like that it improves Bell's Ferry from an overall level of service from a D to a C. Is that correct?
I need to grab the traffic study, but I believe that is correct. I don't have it with
From
me.
August 30th?
From August 30th.
Here.
You can just join them. You can just join them.
There was concern about traffic, and I
Yeah, you
think,
had it here.
Oh, okay.
This'll
Oh, yeah, I
help.
already have it there.
You wrote it in the comments.
Right. Yeah, that was based on a traffic study.
right,
So it does make that improvement.
right, okay. And then also, we requested, based on the initial traffic study, when the entrance was gonna be at the High T intersection on Bells Ferry across from Heck Road, that they look at North Booth as an entrance. And I know there's also concern about the school being there, but with adding the right turn lane and where the entrance is gonna be located meets the site distance. And the RSL, less traffic than single family. That's why we had to look at moving it, and we had to wait the 2 months for the school to go back in session, because this originally was scheduled for July. So, we're good with the North Booth entrance and right turn lane.
Yes, yeah, looking at that improvement of the level of service of the signal is obviously not right at the school, but the cues from the signal can impact the school is what it is. And so allowing that to improve means that you can get an overall timing improvement at the intersection and shorten those cues up so that they never get all the way to the school intersection. Also allows buses and parents to process faster through that intersection, which will improve their drive.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions of the, okay.
You're good. Go ahead. You're fine, Cobb.
He
You're fine.
wants to speak, he can't speak.
No, I'm sorry. I asked for opposition twice, and that was the time to make your discussion. So the answer is I'm sorry. So I'm gonna let Commissioner Burrow continue with your comments.
So, as Mr. Sam said, we have had other developments come in for this property over the years for commercial use, multifamily, retail. And actually, I did not support those proposals because I felt like commercial was too intense on this side of 575 and an all residential and the school nearby. I didn't want commercial encroaching on residential there. So the applicant asked what we wanted, and we got to the RSL because of the less impact on the school and traffic. This property was also on the nominated list for parkland, and we had it appraised and offered to make it a park, but we were rejected. So I'd like to commend the applicant and the Bells Ferry Civic Association for the many meetings and working out the details and the concessions that were made and the requests that were granted to make this a viable project here. And I think an RSL is the best fit for this area. Originally, there was a application for 178 units, which would have been right at 5 units per acre, which is what's allowed for RSL here. And now it's down to 155, which is 4.3 units per acre. So, and you heard the impervious surface is well under the maximum allowed at 55, it's at 40. And the applicant has agreed to install sidewalks at the North Booth and Bells Ferry sides, the frontage, and the right turn lane. So I think that's a plus as well. And I just want to clarify with legal and Mr. Peterson that RSL, the 10 feet between houses, I had staff do a analysis over the last 3 years of RSLs in all the districts that had 10 feet or 10 feet all the way up to 20 feet between homes. And I'd like to submit that for the record as well. But I just want to clarify that that does not set a precedent here.
Commissioner Burr, I'll take that question, but, you know, the fact that you're given a variance on this property would not set a precedent because we look at properties one by one on a case-by-case basis.
Right. Okay. I just want to clarify that. Okay, I think I'm ready to make my motion unless anybody has any questions.
I just had one about, there was a comment made about historic preservation. Have those been addressed?
As far as
There was some,
cemetery or what?
that there was in fact some some historical, evidence of historical connection to the Civil War.
I guess
I
Mr.
just-
Sams or staff, who wants to address that?
Let's do both,
That
okay?
never came up.
There you go.
I'm sure she's gonna say what.
Mandy, I didn't see you there.
We're agreeable to following the archaeological recommendations.
I just saw the comments, I just make sure that they're addressed.
Good morning, Mandy Elliott, Community Development. Yes, there was a historic home on the property, and I was
That's
just
what it
asking
was,
for
right.
documentation on
Yeah,
it, that's all.
okay, all right, thanks.
Okay.
Yes. I'm ready for your motion.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we approve Z40 to RSL non-supportive, subject to Mr. Sam's letters dated August 17th, 2018 and August 30th, 2018. Bells Ferry Civic Association letter dated September 11th, 2018. A maximum of 155 units. Sidewalks on North Booth and Bells Ferry frontage to be installed by developer. Right turn lane on North Booth from southbound on Bells Ferry to be installed by developer. District Commissioner approved final site plan. County Arborist and District Commissioner to approve landscape plan with review by Bells Ferry Civic Association Board. And all Planning Commission and staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict.
Second.
Have a second. Any further discussion? Call a question. Passes 4-0, Commissioner Ott in absence, and we'll take a 10-minute break here. Good morning, Mr. Moore.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
And I'll let you handle the introductions first, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rezoning case Z44, Trayton Homes LLC, request rezoning from R20 OSC and R30 OSC to RSL for the purpose of a residential senior living subdivision in land lots 195 and 196 of the 20th district. The property is located on the east side of Mars Hill Road, north of Stylesboro Road. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z44? Let the record show the applicant, or the opposition has left, Mr. Chairman.
I believe Mr. Weatherford still wants to have parts of the
Go ahead,
case
Mr.
discussed.
Okay.
Highlight it, just to make sure. I think this
Sure.
commends the board. We don't rush through things. We want to get it all out there so everybody sees what we're trying to do here.
Happy to. Always happy to talk as a lawyer, so I'll take the opportunity.
Yeah. Well,
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'm Kevin Moore here on behalf of the applicant and property owner. The property owner is the estate of Leona Howell Price, and the applicant in this rezoning application is Trayton Homes, one of Cobb County's finest builders and home builders and developers, and has been since the early 70s. This is an application to rezone this property to the RSL, Residential Senior Living, for a detached age-restricted community on this approximate 40-acre tract. I just want to highlight, and I am going to do an abbreviated type of presentation since this was on consent agenda. It was taken off by a gentleman who has now left, whom I had never spoken to about this application. It had previously been on 2 planning commission hearings when we presented this application and made significant changes based on our meetings with community members and adjoining residents. And both of those meetings, there was no opposition as well. But I want to turn to the site plan that's on your screens because there's a little bit of context here for this particular development, proposed development, that I think speaks also more than well, speaks volumes as to what the county has done in this particular area, what the estate of Leona Hall Price has done in this area, and then what Trayton has come in and done with respect to this proposed project. This site plan was and is the existing approved zoning plan approved in 2007 for the remainder of the Leona Hall Price property. And just to give you an idea of where we are, this is Stylesboro Road here. Directly across the street in this location is the Leona Hall Price Park. If you are familiar with where that is located, that was donated by her estate to the county for a park. That is an active park of passive trails that the county has developed based on that gift. This was the remainder of her property located here. It stretches all the way from Stylesboro and wraps around to Mars Hill Road. This was a total of 174 acres that was approved through rezoning to R20 and R30 OSC and ultimately approved for this particular site plan. This site plan was and property of 174 acres was approved for 179 single-family homes for a subdivision and community that would be built in part on portions here on Stylesboro Road and also here on Mars Hill Road. Of particular import for us, this section right here is 40 acres, and that's what we're here about today, that was approved with a site plan and layout for 83 single-family detached homes to be located here. What's also of importance is what Cobb County has done in this area of West Cobb. Number one, through the extension of the Parks Bond, the county has now acquired about 140 acres, meaning all of this property is now county set-aside green space and parkland, connecting, therefore, across from Stylesboro to the Leona Hall Price Park. What it also does is if you look at an overview of the map of this area, in West Cobb County, what you will start to see is through the county acquisitions, connectivity, close proximity and connectivity of large acreage and swaths of open space and green space to benefit all of the residents of Cobb County, and particularly from an amenity and passive recreational standpoint, those residents in West Cobb County that live in proximity here. And this only added to that. So this is about 140 acres here that will now be set aside as green space, leaving only the 40 acres here at Mars Hill that is proposed by Trayton for an RSL. development of age-restricted homes. I'm going to turn to that site plan now. And what we've developed through numerous site plan changes in our meetings with adjoining residents, particularly the residents that we met with in the Parkwood at Brookstone subdivision here that adjoin us on our southern edge, as well as residents and the leadership at the Brookstone Homeowners Association. This is right very near the intersection of Mars Hill and Stylesboro Road, which is the main entrance to Brookstone. And so we were very involved in meeting with the Brookstone HOA and gained their support and the support of our adjoining residents for this revised final plan that was presented to the Planning Commission and recommended for approval. This contains a total of 95 homes. So you're only looking at an increase from a single-family standpoint to an age-restricted standpoint of 83 homes to 95 homes, simply 12 homes, which also represented a reduction from the initial application. Of primary importance, I think, for us is in working with the adjoining residents here in Parkwood at Brookstone and reviewing the details with them unanimously. They've supported the concept of having an age-restricted RSL development by Trayton Homes here because of the benefits it would provide in terms of overall livability, enjoyment of the quality of their life in terms of who their neighbors would be, and also because of the impacts on traffic. And by impacts, what we mean is the mitigating lesser impacts on traffic than you would have if you had an 83-unit subdivision, single-family subdivision on this very same property. In addition, we were able to expand buffers, expand opportunities for additional green space within this property, and that's all of the space you see that's shaded. It's almost 16 acres of additional green space that's provided on this property. Also, we will have a system of trails that will connect to the county land here. This is the county parkland that has been acquired all the way up past our property here. So this adjoins county green space now that is located there. We will be connecting our trail system to the county land as well, and therefore, again, providing that important connectivity and passive connectivity for all. We worked, as I said, very closely with the community and residents to gain their support. Trayton Homes did a fantastic job in altering their plans and looking at their designs and taking in all of that input from them to arrive at this point. Our stipulation letter is dated August 28th. That was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission with very minor changes. We supported the Planning Commission's decision, support the surrounding community's decision to support this, and certainly we believe this is an outstanding application from Trayton Homes and would very much so this morning respectfully request your approval of this zoning application consistent with the Planning Commission. I'm here to answer any questions. Mr. Cliff Poston, principal of Trayton Homes, is also here, and we can answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Weatherford.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate and appreciate the presentation, Mr. Moore, and I want to thank yourself and Trayton Homes for working together with the community, and also Mr. Dave Sugarrath, who's here for Friends of Price Park. And if it hadn't been for him, a lot of this wouldn't have happened as far as negotiations as well as the park bond and the property we acquired. To me, this shows a true community effort and how we've worked together in order to get this done. This will be a legacy, I think, for years to come. And it also shows a prime example of how we really need a master plan for the parks that we bought, and I still support that, and I hope that we can get that together because we intend to create a trail from all the way from Harrison High School to Lake Allatoona, following Allatoona Creek, and a master plan would detail that, and certainly when we get the funds, it'll be on the shelf. So again, thanks for the postings and for the Trayton and for you and all that. With that, I'd like to make a motion, sir.
All yours.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Z44 as presented in accordance with the stipulation letter dated from Mr. Kevin Moore, 8/28, and all the staff recommendations not otherwise in conflict.
Second.
You have a second. In discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Ott in absence. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Board, the next case is a land use permit that also has a companion other business case. Would it be the board's wish to hear those together and make separate motions?
I think this is Commissioner Cooper's district, right?
No.
Oh, Commissioner Burrow, I'm sorry. Yeah, as long as she's fine with it, I'm fine with it.
Okay, I'll read them both together then. Land use permit number 9, Cecile Ferguson requests a land use permit for the purpose of backyard chickens, poultry in land lot 344, the 16th district. The property is located on the south side of Blackwell Road, west of Knight Road. Additionally, there's an other business item. Other business item number 38 is to consider a reduction of required lot size for livestock from 2 acres to 0.762 acres for Cecile Ferguson, for property located on the south side of Blackwell Road, east of Mountain Ridge Drive, in land lot 344, the 16th district. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to these 2 cases? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Wow. You got the touch.
Okay, let's see. That, and this, and also, yeah. Oh my God, this is where I have insert doctors, and I have a copy. Last time I didn't have a copy, and then, when the time comes to show, the images, I'll let you know. Yeah, because I may need some help here. Okay,
Hey, good morning.
good morning.
Just let us know who you are, and do you have 10 minutes?
I will, I'll share.
And Cornelius will be glad to help you there.
Yes, thank
We pay him
you.
the big bucks.
Okay, so we can go to slide 1.
Since, excuse me,
One
ma'am.
second, the lawyers just woke up.
Since there's 2 cases.
Right.
We've set the timer at 20 minutes.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay.
Sorry, you got 20 minutes.
If you need it.
Yes, I don't know if I will, but,
will be separate.
Right,
okay.
okay.
So my name is Cecile Ferguson. I reside at 1632 Blackwell Road here in Marietta. I've lived in the community for 14 years, and I'm before this board today for land use permit for poultry, backyard poultry. Am I doing them both? Or I'm starting with yours first?
It's your time.
Okay.
We'll be able to work
with
it out.
Poultry
Sure.
and the other business would be dairy goats and sheep. Here, I'll do it. Yeah. All right. So my motivation for coming before the board, I have a 10-year-old autistic child diagnosed with autism. And along with autism, my son was diagnosed with ADHD combined chronic, severe anxiety, OCD, sensory processing disorder, and there are other behavioral challenges that I deal with as his mother. My son's 10 now, so for 5 years we've been undergoing lots of therapy. For 5 years, my son would have therapy, various therapy sessions twice a week, up to 4 times per week, every day, back to back. We'll have speech, OT, ABA, which is behavioral, social skills therapy. Can we switch here real quick to the doctor's? Ooh, not there. Yeah. What I shared that I didn't share back in June was this note from the doctor I wanted to show from Dr. Linda. She states here, I'm one of the pediatrician who sees Josiah Young in our office. Please be informed that Josiah has autism. His medical condition impairs his ability to communicate and or interact with others, i.e. direct eye contact. As a result, he may have difficulty understanding your directions and may not be able to respond to your questions. He may also become physically agitated if he's touched by a stranger or if a stranger moves too close to him. Due to his hypersensitivity, unfamiliar noises, smells, and a multitude of strangers, especially when we're traveling, other sensory input can trigger meltdown. So
the advice was don't not to interpret his behaviors, refusal to cooperate. He's not intentionally defying your instructions, and they just talk. She just gives instructions on deal with the person who's accompanying him. Can we go back to PowerPoint? Thank you. Okay. So, oops, what did I just do? I'm sorry. All right. So through research, I came across an article published by the Guardian Liberty Voice online news source, and it stated how children with autism may benefit from spending time with animals, whether the animals are part of a formalized animal therapy program or fam animals or pets. So I'm not going to go through the entire packet. I think what I'll do is the benefits of the animals, why I'm here before the board, social skills, communication skills. This is how animals can help children with autism, excuse me. They can help with behavior. Farm animals can help with emotional awareness and regulation, behavioral management skills and behavioral improvement. They can help with skill acquisition, such as communication skills, gross and fine motor, caretaking. Farm animals can help with appropriate social interaction and feedback in regards to social skills, assertiveness, but most of all, it can be fun and engaging for special needs children. In addition, studies have found that an autistic child's interaction with animals enable them to have increased socially appropriate behavior, show fewer autistic behaviors such as hand flapping, which my son does, humming. He hums a little bit, but he has mostly, he makes inaudible sounds in addition to the flapping or on his toes or running back and forth, which is called stimming. He spins objects, spins objects, and he does a lot of jumping. They were less easily distracted and were more likely to engage in conversation and in discussion, often about the animals. Finally, in sessions with children with autism, therapists discovered that farm animals can provoke attention and engagement, reinforce task acquisition and completion, stimulate conversation and social interaction, and provide opportunities for sensory integration. So this is my third, I'm sorry, my phone is only on because I need to show something to the board here. This is my third time here before different boards, and the process has been extremely daunting. I did not know, honestly, the amount of power and authority the board, the planning commission has to greatly impact my life, the life of my family, the desires of my heart, what matters most to me. My first appearance here was through the variance, and the vote was 5, all approved, no opposition. I have not had opposition from my neighbors at all through the entire process going back to June. The second, on September 4th, was planning, 2 votes for. There were 4 on the panel, 2 votes for and 2 against. And they brought up concerns, and I will address the concerns. I met, I believe, this week with Commissioner Burrell. She came out, and I'm thankful that she did, and walked my property. She was very candid with me, very open and honest, very direct with me regarding her concerns and her feelings, her thought about what it is I am asking this board to consider. And I equally, respectfully, was very candid and very direct with her. I told her that I was really floored by strangers I would not have otherwise met but for this process telling me, or I am sitting there and I'm listening to people say, well, I think this is a better thing for you to do. I think your child would benefit from having small animals, domestic animals, or I think you're trying to do too much with your land. And I cannot, from a parent or property owner, express how off-putting that was and upsetting to me, because I felt helpless, but for God, for prayer. And so with that said, I'd like to move forward and show my land and my proposal. Let's move this. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to go back and forth because, yes, because there was a transfer issue of data. How do I do that? Like that? Okay. So I would like to address the concerns. So this is my property, my backyard. And the question is, if what I'm asking of this board, do I have enough space, even though I'm under 2 acres, do I have enough space to have a couple of dairy goats, a couple of sheep, a couple of, well, I thought the maximum amount of chickens allowed was 10, but I was told in the last appearance here, 6. And I'm like, well, fine, whatever it is I'm allowed to have, if approved, that's what I want. But what I'm thinking of is a paddock, 60 feet wide, in length, and 32 feet. Let's go to the next one. By the way, the entire paddock is going to be enclosed, and there's going to be a perimeter fence around my entire property. So it's a paddock within a fenced property. Once again, this is just from a different, this is as if you are coming from my driveway, walking into my backyard, tons of trees still. It's 32 by 60 feet. Can we move to the next one? There you see me, I'm in my backyard. And there's a tree that has fallen. You're getting a perspective. I'm standing on my deck. You're seeing the depth of my backyard. You see the trees. There's a neighbor to my left, a neighbor to my right. There's a creek separating. My property from the other neighbor's property in the back, touching the perimeter or the border of my property. Let's move to the next one. So from where I was standing, this is the edge of the paddock that I want to install, and that is 80 feet. Next door, I don't know if you can see to the right. Yes. Mrs. Commissioner Burrell, when she came to my property, she was surprised that my next door neighbor had chickens because the rooster began to crow. Okay? And she was saying it's illegal. Okay? And I said to her, you didn't know about it because we didn't care. The neighbors don't care. Now, the roosters is something new. He's had the chickens for 4 years, he and his family and their grandchildren, collecting the eggs and having a great time. And so no one has made any fuss. And that was one of and I think his coop can fit in my master closet. It's like 12, I think it's maybe 10 by 10 is his chicken coop that his son-in-law built. So another concern was whether or not I had space for chickens. Clearly, I have space for chickens. A concern of the planning panel was maintenance, the manure, how do I, and smells. Well, I'm sure she can attest it was not nasty and there was no odor. There's never been odor because if you think about it, if you don't change your cat litter, that can smell. It's all about who you are as a person, whether or not you're clean. If you're clean, you're going to take care of your animals and you're going to keep where they live clean. Let's go to the next slide. Oops, can you turn it the other way? Yeah, it's upside down. So once again, from the edge of the paddock to that tree that you saw at a distance is 80 feet. Let's go to the next one. So from the tree, that's 80 feet from the paddock to the creek, and I have property line across the creek, is 79 feet to the edge of the creek. And then I have property on the opposite side, on the other side. Yeah, you could put that up. I'll show that. So this is an invoice dated July 25th. So I was trying to find the contract, but time didn't allow me. Another concern was, I think that was brought up, was that I needed clearing. Ms. Burrell, and as you all can see from the videos, that I cleared out a lot of trees. So I have been in compliance. I've done everything that I possibly needed to do. I've expanded the letters to neighbors 1,000 feet. I've had neighbors from Heritage Farm, from across the street, saying to me they didn't understand why I was sending them letters because they were so far away from me. And I'm like, well, I'm told that I need to do this. And as Commissioner Burrell saw for herself that, and this is information that was told to me, that people said I should do what I wanted to do. I shouldn't have even come through the process. As you can see, some people do. They have chickens in their backyard. They do things that that I guess maybe they started the process and may have been denied, or they're afraid of denial and they just go ahead and do what they want to do anyway. And you're not being notified because their surrounding neighbors don't care. I did not. I'm a woman of faith. The Bible teaches to obey the laws of the land. I wanted to go through this process the right way and come before you, but it has been very hard of a mother of an autistic child. I'm sorry, I get emotional.
Ms. Ferguson, you're doing just great. I'm seriously, this is a terrific performance in the sense of giving your evidence. So take all the time you need, relax, but you're doing just fine.
It's just hard for me when I went through the other two process and I sat and I heard people tell me that what I want is too much for my son, when no one accompanied me during the therapy sessions to know what I need, what I'm trying to do. Back here, I think I had a picture of, there's a story of a girl with chickens right here. This is a story of, her name is Alaire, I think. But the story is about a family who has a 3-year-old boy named JJ who has chickens, and how the chicken has helped his son. And let's go to the other photos of her. There's progressive photos of her here in the article. This girl had severe autism, and she started dealing with handling farm animals, and they just opened her up. And she just began to communicate because she loved her chickens. Her chickens got her out. This is what Alaire, that's her name. This is her with her chickens. And there's a reason why schools take children to farm. It's not the same as dealing with a cat or dog. Farm animals are different. And I don't know what it is about the farm animals, but when I've taken my son to the mountains, or if I've taken my son to Hillcrest Orchards and he's around the farm animals, their goats and chickens and all the stuff, he loves it. When we go to 2x2 farm to collect goat's milk, he loves that. And it's a different expression when he's out and about with them. It's different than being at home with our 3 dogs. It's not the same. And this is why I want to go through the process. So thoughts about chickens being loud. Yes, if you have roosters, they can be loud. Yes, they can be smelly if you're nasty and you're not cleaning out. One of the things, and I said to Commissioner Burrell, I said, she stated where she stood on the matter. And I said, I just want to go through the process and I want it to be fair. I understand I'm on 2 acres or less, but when I sat and I listened to other cases ahead of me, what I saw was the panel applauding the developers or commercial development. They applaud the ability of the proponent and the opposition to work together, work out their differences. I was told that, emails were mailed in, people who was not in agreement with who opposed what I was doing. But I didn't have a chance to talk to those people, and come to find out they're not even within the 1,000 feet of where I live. My neighbors have no issue with what I want, the entire project, what I want to do. My son is at the age now of self-regulation, and he's verbal, he uses cues, and this is just another step in helping me to have my son become a productive citizen, if you will. And there are phases to do this. I felt the last time that my son's health and what I want to do or accomplish was not equal or as important or given the same, the same thought process or opportunities as a commercial development, because of what I heard in deliberation as I sat down from my presentation. And I just ask to consider the whole thing. Give me an opportunity. I have lived in the neighborhood for 14 years and have not offended anyone. I've not caused any problems. And I said to Commissioner Burrell, if I'm allowed to do this, you approve me. And if there's an opposition to it, or if there's a problem, I will do whatever needs to. If I've got to get rid of the animals or whatever, so be it. But don't deny me because you who don't live in the neighborhood, or you think it's not right, or you think I'm trying to do too much. That's not fair to me, and it's not fair to my son, and it's not, you're interfering or hindering my dream and what it is I'm trying to do. Give me an opportunity to at least be opposed by someone, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. Very eloquent. And as a mother, I would expect nothing less than you go full out for your son or your child. So that was a remarkable presentation. I want to let you know that. Commissioner Burrow.
Thank you. Ms. Ferguson, before you sit down, I do want to say I commend you for doing the right thing. And I appreciate you having me and my assistant at your home to look at what you want to do. And you've definitely changed my mind, so. And don't everybody faint, but
you have Can you come back every meeting, please?
Yes. Could you come back more often?
Yeah, every meeting. Come as my guest.
Excuse me.
Come as my guest.
Excuse me, I have the floor. Thank you. You do know the code, and you do know the reasons why we go through this process.
I do.
And for livestock, it is 2 acres, and for poultry as well, with, going through the land use permit and variance process. So, when we met, we talked, and I see you've had the area cleared for the paddock.
Because I told you the excavation team was scheduled, yeah.
So I see you're a woman of your word.
Yes.
And making preparations. So I think what I'd like to do is, I know we talked and you were agreeable to what I'm getting ready to propose, but I want to make sure publicly that that's what you could agree to. And I also understand and appreciate what you're trying to do for your son in his situation. So, because you're only on 7/10 of an acre, and 2 acres is required, but again, through the process, you would be allowed a variance. I think what I could support would be, and what I think may be reasonable at this time, would to grant you 4 chickens, no roosters, 4 chickens, and for a 1-year land use permit, and then see how that goes. And if you have, no complaints or no issues, I also want to reference in your application, you have a written approval from the neighbors on either side and the adjoining neighbor in the rear. So that's all your adjoining neighbors. The letters that you sent out, the 1,000 feet, I had one neighbor across the street that sent in an email in opposition, and one from Heritage Farms, but not within the 1,000 feet, but the HOA is within 1,000 feet. Because there's, 2 sections to that neighborhood. But they're not in the immediate area or surrounding you, adjoining you. So what I would like to propose is that we approve LUP 9, subject to the applicant is allowed a maximum of 4 chickens only, no roosters. The land use permit is valid for 1 year, and all staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict.
We have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Call the question.
Are you good?
I'm good with that, yeah.
Okay.
Call the question.
I'll just a brief comment.
Okay.
I mean, we were funny about it, but this is a significant shift, and I think it goes to the amount of persuasiveness that you have in your commitment to your child. We've had a request before us. Never one have I heard as persuasive as the one that you shared today. And I'm happy to support Commissioner Burrow and hoping this goes well, as it looks as if you're considering beyond the 4 hens. But please know, although you're not getting all that you requested today, for Commissioner Burrow to approve this at all in light of her history is significant.
Okay.
It's significant.
I know.
Yeah.
I thank God for it.
Okay.
Okay.
Bob, are you voting?
I'm waiting. Oh, I did not. Yeah.
Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Rod in absence. Okay.
My finger was.
I know, it was a shock.
Okay, now for other business 38. I'm not trying to tell you that 2 sheep and 2 goats and 4 chickens is too much, but it is on less than an acre, when the code is 2 acres. But what I'm willing to do is, since the 4 chickens, the land use permit for the 4 chickens is for a year, when you come back to renew the land use permit for the chickens, then you can apply for the sheep and goats at that time, and we'll waive the application fee. So you won't have to pay it again, since you paid it this time.
Do I have to go through this process again?
Yeah. But it should be, well,
Yeah, she's gonna have to go through
Yeah.
PC, everything.
yeah, not other business, you won't have to go through PC. For other business, you won't have to go through the planning commission, just this board.
Why would this qualify for other business versus another?
Won't it still be other business?
For the chickens, it's a land use permit. For the goats and the sheep, it's other business.
Okay.
Well, she's still gotta come back next year, because this is a 1-year
gotta-
approval for the LUP. But for the other business, she would
Yeah.
just come before the board.
Right.
Or
The
does she
other
come-
business should just come to the board. For the land use permit renewal, she does have to go through the planning commission. But she'd have to do that anyway with approval.
And that's for the
anyway.
chickens only, for the land use permit.
Right.
Right.
But
So
for the goats, that's other business. Would
it just comes to this
that
board.
just comes to us for the hearing?
That's correct.
Right, yes, okay.
Right.
Okay.
And we will waive the fee for the other business.
Okay,
Was that's good?
that's fine.
All right, motion to deny other business 38, but waive the other business application fee if you decide to apply for goats and sheep next year when you come back for your land use permit renewal.
Okay, we have a second? We have a
Second.
Any comments, discussion? Call the question. Oh, sorry. So that passes 4-0 also, Commissioner Ott. And I just want to say one thing, Ms. Ferguson. One of the previous chairmen once said that this is a great job except for zonings, but you made it worth it today.
Thank you.
It's just, I just think it's first of all, the courage to come up here and do what you did. And I'm sorry that the process is so arduous, but we have to also remember all the other constituents in the county too. But I think that, in the future, you'll be the role model of how this is done because this board has compassion. And we've done things also on a one-by-one basis. Every case is unique. And I think today that you've shown that we do in fact listen and we do respond as much as we can. And I think this is a great compromise. And I look forward to seeing you again next year.
Thank you.
And
Same
good.
here.
And I just want to commend you as a mother.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Okay.
Good Lord be with you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Hey, John?
Yes, sir. Rezoning case Z54, Gregory A. King, request rezoning from GC to NRC for the purpose of retail in land lot 47 of the 18th District. The property is located on the south side of Veterans Memorial Highway across from Pebblebrook Road. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z54? Let the record show there's 2 people opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Good morning. I'm the owner of 488 Veterans Memorial. I'm applying for GC to NRC. I have talked to Mr. Thomas with the Mapleton Coalition. We are in agreement on the restrictions that are being levied on NRC, and I will comply with them. The Planning Commission met earlier. I think you have their recommendations. I have the paint color already on the building if you would like to see it. And I would like to ask for your approval to NRC.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in support of this? Is there anyone else in support of this? Seeing none, those who are opposed now have 10 minutes.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners and staff. My name is Ray Thomas. I'm the Vice President of Mapleton Improvement Coalition. On this particular application, Z54, Mr. King and I have had a dialogue and conversation. So we're not necessarily opposed to this particular application. However, there are some conditions that I'd like to discuss and to ensure that that those conditions are part of the record. On August 29th, we wrote wrote a letter to the Board of Commissioners outlining our support for the application and also pointing out several conditions. Now, I won't go into every single condition that's listed here, but I do want to emphasize a few of them briefly. And those are auto sales and auto-related type establishments. As you all know, in the Veterans Memorial Corridor, we have an overabundance of auto-related establishments, many of them that are not in good condition. One of the things the community has been trying to work on is to effect change, positive change in the beautification and improve the aesthetics, as well as the commercial corridor there on Veterans Memorial. So as a result of that, we would like to emphasize again the auto uses. Be a stipulation or condition that's prohibited from the use of this particular property. In addition to that, the property currently has a land with any defined parking. As a matter of fact, the parking lot right now is pretty much weeds. And so we're asking, as the Planning Commission asked as well, that a parking plan be put forth so that we will know exactly how the parking is going to be assigned, and also to ensure that a parking lot is paved and striped. I believe there's based on the size of the property, I think eight spots are allowed, and so we're asking that those spots be paved and striped. Other than that, we are in support of the recommended variance in the setback from 50 feet to 30 feet. And so, in closing, I'd just like to ask that this particular application be approved, but be approved with the conditions stipulated by the Mapleton Improvement Coalition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in opposition to this zoning application? Anybody else in opposition? Seeing none, Commissioner Cupid.
Yes. Thank you, Chairman. In review of the Planning Commission recommendations and the MIC letter, it looks as if the restrictions are incorporated in the recommendations, and it's my understanding from the applicant that you're willing to accept those conditions. And those conditions do prohibit automotive-related uses in addition to those pawn shops, title shops, gold or precious metal dealers, check cashing services, tattoo parlors, liquor stores, firewood sales, and thrift stores, secondhand stores, or flea markets. Is that correct, sir? Okay. Also, in the Planning Commission recommendation, they do ask for addition of a parking plan per staff recommendation, so it has to abide by Cobb development standards, but to provide the neighborhood a little bit more assurance, I'll just have to also be approved by district commissioner, and that way I can share that with them as this goes forward in the process. With that, I'm ready to make a motion to approve
Absolutely.
this application.
Mm-hmm.
I move that we approve Z54 to the NRC zoning district, subject to Planning Commission comments and recommendations, with modification to the first condition that the parking plan per staff comments be approved by district commissioner. I also wanted to add, and this is the one where I made the comment during consent, I meant to have it here. Number 8 provides district commissioner to approve color of building and canopy if shown, if different than what was shown at that day's hearing. That's what I need to change. And just put district commissioner to approve final building architecture inclusive of building color, material, and elevation for that step 9. Other than that, all staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. Sorry, I had to include that in there. Okay, it's okay. Are you still gonna second? Okay, great.
So we have a second. Any further discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Rod in absence.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving into special land use permits, SLEP 10, Buckner Crossroads LLC requests a special land use permit for the purpose of a climate-controlled self-service storage facility in land lots 68 and 165 of the 18th District. The property is located on the northwest corner of Veterans Memorial Highway and Buckner Road. Earlier, there are 6 people here opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward and be sworn in.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioner Cupid, Commissioners. I'm David Haskin. I'm with Matt Dahlhauser here this morning, the developer of this property. And we're here on this property that you see behind me, a self-storage facility. And I would argue one of the best self-storage facilities I've ever seen. And that's in part due to a lot of discussion between Mr. Dahlhauser and Commissioner Cupid to ensure a residential style, to ensure that the community that looks at that sees a building that's aesthetically pleasing and functional. I think right now what we have is that Dollar Tree. And surrounding that Dollar Tree is empty land. And it's 4.25 acres. There are 4 parcels on that land. If left as it is, undeveloped, I would certainly argue that the Dollar Tree will not be an attractive development in the future. However, Mr. Dahlhauser and those he's been working with have done a lot to ensure that this is a nice-looking piece of property, that it's a property that's functional for this use and other uses in this area, that it benefits the community. We have provided the commissioners with this plan and the elevations for your review. We've also submitted a letter of intent and a letter protecting our constitutional rights regarding this property and preserving our right for our client to use this property and not have that right denied. While restrictions were placed on this property in 2009, including such restriction as auto service facilities, self-storage was not one of those restrictions. And so Mr. Dahlhauser is looking just to get approval for the special land use as well as some slight variances. He is going to discuss those. But I would also like to discuss that as part of a compromise between Mr. Dahlhauser and opposition to this, we have agreed to not address the auto zone that is the next on the agenda. We've withdrawn that for today. We're going to go forward and discuss that a little bit more with Commissioner Cupid and with Mick and other groups to ensure that that gets the proper consideration that we think it deserves. So for questions regarding elevation and regarding size of this building, Mr. Dahlhauser is going to come up here and present. Thank you.
Good morning, Board. My name is Matt Dahlhauser. I'm the applicant as well as the property owner and developer. I just wanted to kind of touch on a few things that my attorney did not, and just and kind of emphasize and also answer any questions you guys may have. A couple of things in the special land use requirements. There's a list of 17 requirements that are considered in actually the land use process to make sure it's a viable project for the area as well as the development. And I want to talk on a little bit about the building height. It states that the building height should not exceed the surrounding structures. And we've actually designed it so that it actually looks like a 2-story building from almost virtually every side, as well as a pitched roof for residential style. So it looks like a 2-story building with a residential pitched roof. And also the current Dollar Tree that's next door, the top of the front arch is almost 30 feet, 29 feet. And the midpoint of our roof, how it's measured from our facility, is right around 31 and a half feet. So it's very similar to the size of the structure to the left. Also, I know there's some consideration on the floor area ratio. With self-storage now, it seems like it's actually going towards a more of a mixed-use product, or kind of becoming more of as a retail use and retail corridor. In the past, they kind of tucked them away in industrial areas, kind of, but I think what we've done is created a product that is not only architecturally appealing, but it kind of meets with the design intent of the original restrictions or stipulations in 2009 with the residential style, because there is some residential across the street as well. I guess there's some other things in terms of like window style. We will have non-transparent windows, residential style along the property that's facing Buckner Road, as well as some of the other windows. There is a mixed-use component to this, as we feel it's, as working with Commissioner Cupid, we feel this is a better product and better use of the area to allow some sort of retail or office interaction into the actual building itself and not being just a complete quiet use of self-storage. I know there's been some concerns about traffic in the area as well. One thing that staff and Cobb County DOT has requested is that we do a market impact study for the traffic signal, because that's been a big concern for the area. I'm not sure if a lot of people know, but we have agreed also with Cobb County DOT to help fund the traffic signal I think it's around $10,000 per property pad, which is a total of $40,000. We've worked with Georgia DOT as well to try to get some additional help in trying to make this traffic light come along, but they feel it's not warranted at this time. So as we do some additional development, hopefully the impact study will actually make the traffic signal happen. There's some other things. This is a Class A facility. It's going to be operated by either a national or regional tenant, like an Extra Space or someone comparable. There's no outdoor storage. It's 100% securitized. There is an on-site manager during the day for anyone coming in, but the facility is not open 24 hours a day. We have their standard, for other facilities in the area is Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 6, and Saturday, 9 to 5:30. On Sunday, the tenant is closed. The key card access is typically from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. for these facilities as well. Yeah, 10 p.m. Also wanted to kind of address some concerns in terms of the Buckner Road access and how it was originally designed or intended in 2009. The original plan in 2009 had a 40-foot setback buffer along Buckner Road and also a curb cut access directly onto this parcel. Cobb DOT did not allow that curb cut access along that parcel and has actually required us to do a deceleration lane to enter the property. So this facility or this building is actually not fronting Buckner Road, but actually facing more towards Veterans Memorial. So there is some, we've tried to make it as aesthetically as possible, as well as some additional landscaping. And we've actually already spent over $100,000 currently on this property to make it a very nice facility with landscaping. I want to also kind of show the self-storage facility. The current layout, based on the mixed use, does require some variances to be allowed for the parking up in the front to make more of an interaction. We do have a design, and I can show that in a second, that does not require variances, but we just don't feel like that is a inviting facility in terms of interaction overall with working with Commissioner Cupid in terms of the mixed use viability of the building. And a lot of people are going to that, but we went ahead and put our best foot forward and designed it as a self-storage mixed use building. This next slide shows the kind of a section cut or elevation showing the existing Dollar Tree, the climate-controlled self-storage. As you can see, it's similar in height. The actual pitch roof portion starts right at or below the parapet of the Dollar Tree. So to kind of give that pitch roof feel and not it kind of helps absorb some of the heights. Also, the residential property across the street is a 2-story with a pitched roof as well. There's a couple different, there's four residential there currently. So they do vary a little bit, but most of them are at least 2 stories with a pitched roof, and some also do have basements on the back half of the property. Um, This next slide shows the view from the front as well as a view from Buckner Road. The east elevation is aside from Buckner Road. We do have a small where the parking is located would show is where there'd be a slight retaining wall. We can add some additional landscaping, work with the commissioner, and also work with the MIC and making sure the landscaping is adequate for shielding and screening. As you can see, the elevations of the existing grade, most of the basement level is underground, so it's actually not very visible. And then all the upper story is actually behind a pitched roof, so it would be the same height if it wasn't storage behind that pitched roof or not. We're just utilizing that area.
So your time has run.
Okay. Thank you very much, and we do request approval.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and the board. My name is Alan Owens, and I'm representing the Brookmere subdivision of single-family homes on Buckner Road. As presented at the planning hearing on 9/4/18, I just want to touch on three of the criterias that was mentioned during that meeting in opposition of the self-storage for the community. Number one, it's too large for the actual parcel. Number two, it would cause an adverse effect on the quiet enjoyment of our neighborhood. And lastly, it'll affect our property values that we've been in that area for, again, the last 15, 20 years. In closing real quick, because I know I have some other members, following the recommendation of the planning board in denying this application, and again, I want to thank you all for your time.
Good morning. My name is Dominique Boldrick, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. I have been a member of the Mableton community, myself and my husband, since 2012, and I currently live at 830 Buckner Road, which is the house that he referenced in his image. I'm not sure. So that yellow house is currently my house that I live in right now. This was the view before construction started. It was just trees and things of that nature. And this is the view that I'll have if this is approved. I am in disagreement with this. As I open my front door today, the first thing that I see is a Dollar Tree sign. This doesn't do very much for changing that to be in a more positive light. In the images that he showed people on bicycles and walking around. I'm not sure what reason I would have to ride my bike or walk around a facility of this nature being directly across the street from my house. I think that the Buckner Crossing has a very pivotal opportunity to change Veterans Memorial and Buckner Road for the best if it's utilized properly, and I'm in disagreement with the use that is presented today. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Sonia Wheatley, and I'm with the Mableton Improvement Coalition. This has been a pretty active case for quite a while. I hope Robin Meyer spoke during the Planning Commission hearing. I hope I do as good a job covering the details, but I know that you guys also watch the Planning Commission hearings, I believe, and she did a really good job explaining opposition. I do want to be clear that this is not, MIC has not taken a position of opposition to the particular use. The problem is that it doesn't fit this parcel. It doesn't fit the conditions that are in place on this parcel. This is a special land use permit, which, as you know, you have the right to factor in the criteria and the use. It's not a rezoning. The property has a legal use. It was approved in 2009. The zoning is a current category. Businesses can be built there. It can be developed. The problem that we've been running into for what seems like 6 months now is that we keep hearing pieces of, referencing pieces of 2009 that the applicant agrees with, but then the parts he doesn't agree with are skipped. It's kind of piecemealed. The biggest concern for me is that, every single hearing here, planning, anywhere, we talk about the neighborhood, the community groups working together and working with the commissioners. This is supposed to be a public process, and it's a great process that gets everyone engaged. What was agreed to in 2009 was after a lot of work, and it was very forward-thinking. It was getting a development that was village style, that had very special stipulations that are still applicable, that are not something that are an egregious violation. They don't violate constitutional rights to use this property. You guys imposed very similar stipulations today. So to stand here and listen to things such as the architectural style, composition, and treatment of the building shall consist of four-sided architecture and shall be uniform. On parcel 1, which is this parcel, it will be built in residential style with differing facades, peaked roof, residential style construction details. Windows that are residential in size and in agreement. There will be no floor-to-ceiling plate glass. Stipulation 3, which again, if we're talking about whether it's the right thing to look at changing it because of market conditions, this was 2009 that the landowner brought this in. 2009, the worst market we've seen in my lifetime. And this was the stipulations that the attorney wrote, that the attorney agreed to. So the total site shall be developed as a neighborhood residential area anchored by offices, retail, restaurants, potential childcare. It is not the use that we are opposed to. It is the fact that it doesn't meet the criteria. Respectfully, again, Robin did such a great job, I'll touch on it. But point number 11, will it have a significant negative adverse impact on the neighborhood area? Yes, it will. It is violating the expected buffers. It's putting a building that's 200 feet long, violating that back buffer. The property behind it that is zoned residential is going to be developed. Don't you expect that property owner is going to lose their rights when they have to move houses further back to accommodate the fact that people don't want to live behind a towering, warehouse, which is what it's going to look like from the back? Whether quiet enjoyment of surrounding property will be adversely affected. There will be significant impact when the neighbors that are across the street bought property, knew what to expect. Now we're telling them there's going to be a building 2 floors higher they're going to be looking at because that's the way the land's graded. That property is supposed to be facing internally. It is a stipulation from 2009. The parking is supposed to be on the interior. So the applicant's asking for a lot of changes that don't mesh up with the best interest of the neighborhood. Beside it, the neighborhood that will be developed behind it. And quite honestly, what has me the most upset about the applications on this parcel, does it make everything we stand here and do collectively as a community useless? When you guys impose stipulations, when you either put them on yourself, they're agreed to via stipulation letter, when an attorney meets with us and says we'll agree to this, does that mean the next landowner gets to say, yeah, sorry? There's not a hardship on any of these requests. There's other than that's what I want. And what I want should not violate what's essentially a contract with a community. Please deny this. Thanks.
Hi, Ray Thomas again, Mapleton Improvement Coalition, and I agree with the opponents of this proposed development and everything that they've said. But I do want to add a couple of items briefly. First of all, it hasn't been 6 months; it's been a year since we have been in dialogue with the developer on this particular piece of property, and it just seems like. We go around and round and round, and we end up back to the same point. For example, we the property was rezoned with special stipulations in 2009. We have ended up with a Dollar Tree, which is not a prohibitive use. We are proposing today a massive self-storage building, which self-storage was not part of the prohibitive uses back in 2009. All right, and then there is a proposed automotive use, which has been withdrawn, thankfully. So where are we at today? Well, as Asani Wheatland mentioned, a lot of work went into the proposed rezoning in 2009. Stipulations were applied to the property, and yet here we are today proposing that some of those stipulations be removed. Now, I think we would all agree that the scale of the proposed self-storage is too large. But despite that,
Sir, your time has run.
okay, just briefly, but despite that, the stipulations, we have not received a stipulation letter regarding what the self-storage use would be like. So we're proposing that this case be denied. Thank you.
As the board has heard today, this has been a highly, I won't say contentious, debated site in our community. And debate over the site even predates this application coming in. The building that's showing on the screens before the board and the public is not an indication of what the site is today. There used to be an automotive repair site that had a number of code enforcement challenges, and that business moved down the street on VMH and started operating without being permitted by the board, and it carried a problem from this corner down the street. This site has just had lingering challenges in the community. The current applicant has come in, graded the site, and even the picture today doesn't depict the significant improvement that the site has had since the movement of the prior automotive repair business down the street. There is a retail building there, which is a Dollar General, much to the angst of many of the residents who are there. And not just them, but Dollar Generals are just a frustration to residents across the district. Before running for office, I was interviewed by NPR when a Dollar Tree moved to the Six Flags area. It was the first four-sided brick Dollar General in the whole U.S. because that community came out and opposed the Dollar General. In the district, there's just the thought that anything that doesn't come up and uplift and showcase that this is a forward-moving and more resourced community is a frustration here. So this is kind of the backdrop to the site. The site was zoned in order to have retail. They brought in a retail that the community was flat out opposed to. but because it was already zoned NRC, the applicant had the ability to come in and move into that site. The site has had a number of site plan changes and a number of proposed uses, a couple of which were in direct contrast to the conditions of the zoning. There was a desire for a gas station that was prohibited, a desire for an automotive repair center. Those were explicitly stated as prohibited uses. The applicant develops retail in the metro Atlanta area and has been taking requests, my request, the community's request for viable retail options and desirable restaurant options in this intersection. The challenge is there's adjacent retail in this area that's currently sits vacant. There is a mixed-use site not far from this corner that has retail and beautiful residential, and the retail under it, some of it sits vacant. So here you have a zoning for more retail, and they're competing with existing vacant retail space, trying to bring in a developer or trying to bring in a business to move into your area and probably spend more for new space when there's existing empty space. What do we have here today? So you have a Dollar General, but you have a site that is cleared. So you see just rocks and rubble, and you see this Dollar General that is sitting there. And the community is rightfully so waiting for the completion of this site. The debate is, to me, has turned to what does the community want and what does the zoning allow? The community certainly is looking for very specific retail uses to complement the community. However, efforts to try to reach out to certain retailers, even on my behalf, I reached out to the Georgia Restaurant Association and other groups, is because Mableton is mostly a bedroom community, it's been very difficult to attract certain types of retail and restaurants in this area because it doesn't have a daytime market to sustain it. So this developer has, and other developers in this area, been somewhat hamstrung what to do with their space, even though we have a burgeoning, well-resourced residential community that I believe, and rightfully so, that they are resourced and able to spend in this area. So in speaking with the applicant, it's very difficult. I just can't see supporting any more automotive, especially since that was specifically prohibited in the prior zoning. But as was shared, storage has not been specifically prohibited. And why would I consider storage out of any use? In Mableton, there was no opposition when we had a prior case for storage. And when a developer came to introduce a mixed-use storage concept for another location in Mableton, well, when the applicant came and said they just wanted storage, people were reticent. But when they said, well, come and put in retail at the bottom, and they showed how sexy storage is becoming, the climate controlled, people said, okay, well, we're willing to consider it. This is another area of Mableton that has the ability to, I believe, still get an attractive storage facility that was appealing to residents of Mableton in another community, and another part of Mableton, another part of the community, and also get retail underneath that broadens the type of uses that can be available. The reason why I'm even willing to entertain this is because while we've had difficulty filling in vacant retail, if you have a viable storage facility, the income from that storage facility can offset any challenge or burden with having retail. In fact, you might be able to bring in retail at a lower rate because you have money coming in from this other use, which is attached to this. So to me, having this here helps to make retail more viable for this space. The one concern that I do have is the magnitude and size, and I do believe it's a very large facility. And one thing that kind of softened my perspective about it is in speaking with the zoning department, the RM8 behind this is actually zoned for 3-story townhomes, which would be taller than the storage facility because it's 3 stories plus a roof on top. And if there's a residential community in the RMA, if you have more of a residential style neighborhood retail commercial that's of lower height, then all the noise and traffic from VMH is going to go directly into that community. But if they do have this transitional use to VMH, that actually helps to buffer noise. It helps to buffer their view from VMH. There's concern about what's the expectation of the neighbors across the street. The neighbors across the street are already zoned for a much higher facility to be right across the street. And I see people, and in fact, I would just like to just confirm with our zoning manager for the zoning that's in the RMA, if you can talk about the facility that has been zoned there.
Yes, that RM8 was probably zoned in the mid-2000s for townhomes. And we did look at the file on that, and there were renderings and descriptions of what the buildings would look like. And the buildings are 3 stories tall with a roof, so that would be somewhere between 40 to 45 feet in height, which would be much taller than this.
Yeah. So, while size overall of the facility, I think is something that is still somewhat intense, the height factor becomes less of a concern for me when I see residential has already been zoned for that area at a much taller scale. Sorry, John. Do you want to share something else?
And Commissioner Cooper, thank you. When we met a few weeks ago, I did take a look at all the other storage places that have been zoned by the board this year. And, believe it or not, there's been one almost every month this year. There's been 8 approved so far. And they've all had variances for setbacks or buffers or height, FAR, parking. Not all of them, but a lot of them have had to have these type of variances to put them in where the owners want to put them. So, it would be my opinion that it would not be out of place here. These things go in areas where there's residential, such as townhomes or single-family homes.
Yeah. And that's been my experience being here on the board. We've had some very intense storage units brought, some that have also had opposition brought in adjacent to residential properties. And I just decided to do just a cursory search of storage facilities here in Cobb County because I did get some emails that also said, well, there's too much storage facilities here in Cobb. And I couldn't find another climate-controlled facility in Mableton. There's 2 other storage, out of all the Mableton storage facilities, there's one off the 5439 Old Floyd, which is right in a residential community, and that's outdoor, old-school storage. And there's also one off of Mableton Parkway, Metro self-storage at 6800 Mableton Parkway, and again, in the midst of residential, even though it sits off of Mableton Parkway, which is another state route, as Veterans Memorial is a state route. But it's the outdoor, roll up the garage door from the outside, walk-in storage facility. This is the first, as was shared by the applicant, Class A type storage that I'm seeing for Mableton, where somebody has that option. And if you're looking at this being a residential area and all of the types of uses that could be in a neighborhood retail commercial space next to residential, it could be a restaurant, which I'm hearing is more desirable, would have more of a noise impact, would have more impact of quiet enjoyment to residents that live in that area than a storage facility. And typically for our storage facilities, the parking is limited significantly because there is not a lot of traffic going in and out of these facilities. The one thing that would drive additional traffic here is my desire to see this be a softened use for the community where it's mixed use, where it's not just a storage facility, where it can have more of a residential community component. The applicant does have variances associated with it, but the applicant has shared, if I didn't put in the retail or the mixed use or offices that you would desire to be more community oriented, I wouldn't need any variances. I can just come in and build a storage facility. And I think that with the Dollar General that's already there, just dropping in stores that doesn't have more of a community engagement piece is not necessarily helping the community, even though it will get the community what they're telling me is important today, which is no variances. And I just, for what this area needs or what it doesn't have, having a community-oriented space is important. What having a retail use under this building, a potential office use does, it opens up the opportunity for entrepreneurship in this community that's also not there. As the applicant has tried to see if any community groups wanted to use space, he's talked about having a mixed shared use space. He's willing to dedicate 4,000 square feet of space, but nobody from the community who he's been dealing with has been willing to even engage him in conversation. And there's been talk about a stipulation letter. He's been reaching out, trying to see where there could be compromise. And I'm having to deal with him, and he's going to me saying, can I go back and forth? And at the time, I'm busy preparing for other cases. I don't see why this dialogue isn't happening, because as was shared by a prior speaker here today, I try to encourage everybody continuing to speak together. But when people just put up walls and we're unable to have a conversation, my fear is that we're going to end up just having rubble out there. We're not going to have a developer coming in that's been able and willing to put forward the quality development here. And we're going to end up with a product that doesn't have to come through other business, that doesn't have to come through zoning, that can be of challenge to the community. A no is not just no to this. A no could be a yes to something else that you have no ability to regulate. Here, I think we have an owner who's willing, who's been delaying this case, not because he wants it delayed, even though perhaps so, because we've been trying to get some uses that in the proper weren't in the permit in the prior stipulation letter. But he's met with me multiple times, met with the community multiple times, trying to do what he can. On top of that, I had a community meeting. He brought out a broker. The broker explained the challenge of retail space in Mapleton and why they're having challenges in this community. Because the community doesn't see zoning, they just see what they don't see. They see the other communities have certain amenities, and they see that they have the means to be able to get it. Why aren't they getting it here? And that broker kind of shed some light on us and let us know why Mapleton is having challenges the way they're situated. So me here, do I see storage being the ideal use that the community desired? Perhaps not. But do I see storage helping to support a retail use that could be much more desirable with the community in a mixed-use setting? I do. And for that reason, I'm willing to support this. However, I do want to talk to the applicant, and I'm not willing to yet confirm the size and scope yet. I just need to have more conversation about just that intense size and not. And maybe I would love to entertain communication from the board, because while I say size is an issue, again, from learning about the townhome community that's going to be next door, it's going to be about 10 feet higher than this building.
Commissioner Weatherford, and I'll come down the table.
Thank you, and thank you, Commissioner Cupid. I agree with what you're saying, and most of what you're saying I've was writing notes about as well. A couple of thoughts that I have. I had already noticed the RM8 behind there, and I didn't realize how much intensity that was going to be versus what this is. And the fact that it's been sitting here for off and on for 10 years tells me it's not the economy, it's whatever, it's the mix or whatever it takes for some retailer to do that. And it's hard to get what you want there when they do their own justifications. I know in Ackworth, we tried to get a hotel forever, and they were saying, no, all we got is the $39 hotels, not the nicer hotels. We got a Dollar Tree, and we made them brick it as well, probably because you'd already set the precedent. I don't know, but it's fine. I have an AutoZone within a mile of my house, and O'Reilly's and another one, and I know that's not part of this, but it was mentioned there. I don't consider that automotive. That's a retail store that's very nice. The only thing I've ever seen at any one of the three are people changing a battery out, and that's one of the services they provide, which takes 5 minutes. So it's not like they're doing oil changes or changing transmissions in the parking lot. They're going in and buying things, and I frequent them very often. So just because it has auto in the name doesn't mean it's automotive. It's a retail store. So that's something to think about in the future. But again, largely undeveloped, and I think it's one of the prettiest designs I've ever seen for a storage facility. The fact that you've asked for retail in front of it's even better. So I completely support you in this application. So.
Commissioner Burrow.
I somewhat agree. The height, I don't think, is the problem with the RM8 behind that being taller. But on page 370, with the variances requested, I'd like to see, you know, the 20-foot landscape screening buffer that's adjacent to residential, rather than 15 feet. I'd like to see that requirement met. And I know we have had some in the past where the FAR didn't meet the maximum allowed, and I mean, you're looking at 0.75 to 0.87, but it's still a variance. But, and then the setbacks from 30 to 15 feet and 50 to 15 feet just seems like too much.
I need help. Thank you. Can the applicant approach with respect to that first setback, the 50 to 15 feet?
Yeah, on the, to clarify that a little bit, one, the original site plan that was done in 2009 did not have a deceleration lane. So we are having to give additional right-of-way as well. So that is one thing that is, so if you took it from the center line, we're automatically having to give away, say, 8 to 10 feet. So that actually takes off a little bit of our setback requirement, where it makes it almost where, in the current plan, if you had 50 feet, plus you're giving right-of-way, plus you got 35 feet on the back, plus 30 feet between the Dollar Tree, it really limits what you can do pretty tremendously. So, so that variance in terms of, and I guess there's still some questions. You know, I've read that it was 40 feet, and on the site plan from 2009, it shows 40 feet along Buckner Road. But I know it was listed as 50 feet, because I think 50 feet is a major arterial road, and this is considered a secondary road.
And that's what I'm trying to understand, and looking at the layout and looking at this. Your 50-foot setback, is that from, it's off of Buckner Road, correct?
It is, and currently, I mean, we're not trying to get into a, like how it's, because it's actually one parcel, the front and the back, it has not been divided yet. So you could almost argue that our 50 feet is measured off of Buckner Road, I mean, off of Veterans Memorial, instead of actually off of Buckner, but it's.
Could we put a picture up
Yes,
there
if you can
and
show
show
what
us what you're
the
talking
requirements
about?
are.
Because to me, the setback's from VMH, not from Buckner.
For to be 50 feet. it
Yeah,
would seem that
exactly.
way.
So I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm not hearing what you're trying to tell us.
Yeah. The side setback seems.
Yeah,
And the
so-
side setback would be less
Yes,
of an
right.
impact, yeah.
All right, so where's your 50 feet from on this chart?
Here's Buckner Road.
Yeah, why are you calling that the front setback? That's side.
Because there's a parcel in front of it that has not been, like, there's one more parcel in front of that.
Right, I got the whole diagram here. So you're calling, you want to reduce that to what? 15 feet?
15 feet. And it would be, if it's considered a side, it would be 30, and then we'd be going down to 15.
So where's your, I'm sorry, Commissioner Keeper, I didn't mean to take away from you, but the landscaping buffer, where's that on here? I thought that was where the 20 feet was.
No, that's the back part here.
Okay.
It's configured.
So the side is the front?
Yeah,
Chairman, is it
Go
okay if
ahead.
we have DOT come up and help us
sure,
walk through
yeah,
this?
go ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just,
Sounds like it's some kind of spirit law versus the.
It's stating that it's off of Buckner instead of off of Veterans Memorial, which we feel it's facing Veterans Memorial. It is off that, but I didn't want to argue that.
Ashley, can you help us walk through where the setbacks are on this and what the requirements are?
We just asked for additional right-of-way. So since Buckner is a minor collector, we usually ask for 30 feet from the center line. And we've asked for additional right-of-way just so the sidewalk and curb and gutter will be within the right-of-way.
so show us on that chart where you're talking about. Yeah, I got that, but I want to make sure we're all on the same sheet of music here.
Okay, this is
A great shot of your back, yeah, thank you.
Sorry. Okay, if this is the center line of.
Okay,
If that's the center line of Buckner, we require 30 feet from the center line.
all right.
And for this sidewalk and curb and gutter to be, within the right of way as well, we want 10 foot from the, 10 foot from the curb, which I don't think is shown on here.
Was the solid black line the curb?
I believe, I guess so.
So you want 10 more feet from there?
It will, right, 10 feet from the curb line. That's just the right of way, and I'm not sure about the setback requirements through zoning.
Basically, the setback begins at the edge of the right-of-way line. And so what we're asking for is for a few feet behind the sidewalk.
I see, okay.
And then the reason that that is the front setback, and I'm not zoning, but I can speak to it, is that is the short side of the development when you look at the whole site. And so it's my understanding that the short side is always the front, even no matter what road it's on.
Who knew?
What's the difference?
I'm not in zoning, but that's my understanding.
What's the difference?
So John
is the front side?
Let John answer.
Can I answer that question?
Yeah.
All right. Board, if you turn to page 366 in your book, Cornelius, you got 366 up there. And what Cornelius is putting up is what's in your book, which is very similar to what's on your screen right now with the new plan. Okay, that's good. See, the property that the storage building is on.
No, you had it right the first
Right
time.
there.
There you go. That's
The
fine.
parcel that the storage building is on is shown on this site plan. It's kind of squared off, going through the parking lot and up. Yeah.
Correct.
And this is the same configuration that's shown on the board that was just shown. So the front setback is from wherever the public road frontage is. So all along there is Buckner Road. Okay, we got it? So that's where your front setback is shown from, right there, because it's a separate parcel shown on this plan. So that's your 50-foot setback.
Okay. So it's not necessarily based off of what, it's not necessarily based off of it's a main arterial or no?
It can be, but it doesn't matter in this situation because it's 50 feet, because Buckner Road has the same setback whether it's an arterial or a collector. It's just different when it's a local road.
Okay.
So where's the rear on here?
The rear
Yeah.
Must be over by the
is,
Dollar General.
is the west side adjacent to Dollar General.
So that's when, that's set, that's a set, they want 15 feet for that between them and the Dollar General, right?
That's
And
correct.
that's contained within the site, so that's not Dollar
Right,
Tree.
okay.
Yes,
And that's the rear, so
yes.
is this top, the top of there, of the storage facility, that backs up to the RMA?
That's correct. And that's where they're asking for the buffer reduction.
Can I,
20 to
Well, that's
15.
where they need a buffer, where it's wraps up the residential.
can I explain real quick as well? We have not subdivided that parcel yet, the one being the corner, the direct corner and the storage facility. So technically, if we haven't divided it, Buckner Road would probably, Investors Memorial would probably be considered the road frontage because it's the major arterial.
Yeah.
But we know we are going to subdivide it at some point, so we didn't want to have to come back and ask for variances to subdivide it, so we just kind of went with what was considered the Buckner Road setback.
So right now it meets.
Yeah, it seems, okay, so then it would meet it for the 50 feet from VMH were it to be subdivided, Dana, I see you.
If you look at this as one parcel, Veterans Memorial is
Who are you?
your front setback. Dana Johnson, Cobb County Community Development. Because this is going to be a subdivided parcel, they want to obtain the setback that they would be necessary in order to make that subdivision happen. Because if not, what would end up happening is they would go ahead, they would get their approval for this. If the board decides to approve this, they would come in for a lot split. We would say, well, thank you for coming, but you have to go back to the board again for a variance.
Okay.
So that's what they're doing, is trying to get that variance as part of this approval process, so they wouldn't have to come back through again.
Mr. Johnson, let me ask you a quick question, sir.
Commissioner Johnson.
If we don't do anything to this parcel, it meets all of our criteria. Is that right? I mean, it meets it as it sits without being subdivided. The front setback.
The front setback off, if as a single parcel, yes.
Okay, and when we subdivide it, we put a imaginary line there that some lawyers figure out and surveyors stake out, and it doesn't meet it.
Correct, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just an old country boy, but that doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
That's how funny zoning works sometimes.
Okay, I just.
So if you subdivide, you're saying we need smaller people? Is that what you're saying to
It
get by
changes,
there?
it changes what's considered the road frontage from Veterans Memorial to Buckner after it's
But it didn't
subdivided.
change anything
Correct. 'Cause it's-
physical.
No.
Because it's not considered part of
I
that
know, but it's
larger
still
parcel
ridiculous.
once that happens.
Commissioner
which is-
Burrow has a question.
Question. Number 5 in your variances, could you shift the building forward where the parking is 5 feet, and then you'd have 20 feet between the RMA as required?
Based on the parking layout and requirements, it would take away the sidewalk in front of the building, so
Because of the retail.
we would have to reduce the size of the building.
Yes,
So the answer is no.
because we're giving up that because of the retail. If it was just straight storage, you wouldn't need all those parking spaces.
Right.
But because we're asking to put in
Because
that
you got
additional
retail.
use, he
Is
has
there,
to
is there any
drop more.
way for us to put maybe along that back side, a privacy fence of some sorts that may, because
That, I think. is a
that,
compromise, yeah.
that back piece as well, our storage only sits probably, because such a big hill behind us, that we're actually 2 stories below the top of that hill. So only about 20 feet of the storage building be showing along the RM8 property line, so it's not very tall back there at all.
Would you be open to that, Commissioner?
Well, this is 4 stories.
Well, kind of.
3 stories.
I mean, is one below grade?
One's
the basement.
below grade, one is below grade, and then one is actually inside the pitch roof at the top. So it looks like 2 stories.
Okay. No, I just.
And it's
I
still
think you gotta
considered a
give
smaller
some
facility.
buffer back there, but.
Yeah, I'm going to support you. The only concern I have is the young lady that lives across the street.
That's
Look, I'm just like anybody else. I move into a house, there's no land, there's nobody across the street there. I don't know if it's a knack from a cack from a rack, all right? I'm just a homeowner. But the land is zoned NRC, all right? So you're absolutely right, you just go in there, and if you want to put in stores that match the stipulations, you don't need anything from us except for land disturbance. So they're gonna be surprised anyhow. But if there was some way you could landscape that side of the building, that she gets up and he gets up and the kids get up in the morning, they drive out, they don't see that. I think she's got a point there. If you could landscape that to over time, put some foliage there, or a tree or something there, I think that would address my concern for this whole issue.
And I completely agree with that 100%. I have no problem if the neighbors across the street want to engage and look at our landscape plan to see what we can do. Or if they would, maybe I'm adding some cost to myself, but if they would like some trees planted on their side of the road, maybe to kind of help some screening as well, I have no problem doing that.
I think it's just one of those things where I heard her, and she's got a point, but I also understand the law, that, hey, it is what it is, but nonetheless, we get along here because we work together in this community. So if you would engage with her on that, I think that might address some of her concerns. Okay,
Okay.
yeah,
So, and then just to address your point, Chairman, there was another neighbor that came out that lives along there, and she said, every day I wake up and I see a Dollar General.
Right.
Well, if this is there, this hides the Dollar General. I mean, of course, somebody would prefer to see trees, but they're not seeing
Sure,
that.
right.
They're seeing something that in style looks more of an office or office blend with more of a kind of retail type
Sure,
of
right.
facade. Yeah.
How about they put a big Georgia Tech symbol on that side?
Well, I take that anywhere. Nice tie, by the way. Nice Georgia Tech yellow.
We've also designed it in Craftsman style, so we have, vertical board and battens and stuff, because I know the Craftsman style across the street is kind of the architecture they're going with, so we've tried to kind of keep with some of that, because her neighbor actually asked us to keep with some architectural standards as something that kind of fits with her home as well,
Okay.
so.
I just asked you to engage in a conversation with her and see what you can do to help her. Okay, Commissioner, I think
Yes,
you're ready
okay,
for your motion.
So with that, again, just recognizing, I understand the frustration of the residents who are in that area. This has been a tough area for us to try to develop. I do believe that having retail mixed with the storage is going to soften the uses that can be there and provide the opportunity to have more of an engaging community use with that building. I would much rather see that than have this vacant rubble that's there now. And in fact, there's been some challenges with the site from a safety perspective because of the condition that it's in. So having a development there that's of this quality, I think helps to meet the area halfway, and it certainly is a step above the car repair that was there, that was inundated with code enforcement issues in the time past. Just a prelude for our other business item, I'm praying that we can find a retail use that the community is in agreement with, that does comply with the prior zoning. And I know you're working diligently on that, and hopefully we'll continue to have dialogue with that. So now, in the midst of all this paper, I move that we approve this SLUP, subject to the site plan presented today that's existing for, subject to the site plan provided today, with the following retail uses prohibited on the storage facility: no auto-related uses, no pawn shops, no title shops, no gold or precious metal dealers, no check cashing dealers, no tattoo parlors, no liquor stores, no thrift or secondhand flea market or discount stores permitted in that building. Final building architecture, color, and landscaping, inclusive of fencing, is to be approved by the district commissioner with emphasis on heavy landscaping along Buckner Road and also to the rear of the property. Access of the property is to be limited to 6 a.m. For the storage use is limited from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Have a second?
And any
sorry,
staff
I
comments?
apologize.
Sorry, I always
I
pause
forgot
before
that.
I do the staff comments and
I apologize.
recommendations. Just want to make sure I have everything.
I'll second with a
All
quick
staff
question.
comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict to be.
Okay, so we have a second, and he has Commissioner Weather has a question,
Yeah.
and Commissioner Burrow also.
Would you read the one about gold? Are you saying you don't want a jewelry store in there?
No. It's the
It
gold
sounded-
precious. It's the same language I've used on the.
Well, no, but we said pawn separately. I'm
I'm
just
sorry,
wondering.
no gold or precious metal dealers. This is the trade.
Is it-
Without prohibiting, no gold or precious metal dealers without prohibiting the retail of gold or jewelry. Gold or, am I saying this right? Jewelry,
We're good. Commissioner Burrow.
fine jewelry.
Commissioner Cupid, I understand what you're trying to do, and I agree with that concept, but I just can't support the number of variances.
I understand.
Okay. Any other comments? Then I call a question. Passes 3-1 with Commissioner Burrow
That
in
was your inner
opposition.
heart.
No problem. And Commissioner Ott absence. We just have one left, right, John? Yes. Okay, so let's do OB 40. And
Oh, there it is. Mr. Sands is there.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Board. For the record, my name is John Peterson. I am the zoning division manager. Your only item today for the other business agenda is item number 40, which is to consider a reduction of public road frontage for proposed lots 1 through 3 from 75 feet to 7 feet per lot for John and Mona Lloyd regarding, or for property located on the south side of Hadaway Road, east of Oak Mountain Road and land lot 270 and 271 of the 20th District. By way of background, the Board of Commissioners considers all reductions to minimum road frontage pursuant to a code amendment to section 134-271-7A adopted by the board on February 27, 2018. The subject property is zoned R30, and the applicant would like to create 3 lots behind the existing lot. The applicant would like the Board of Commissioners to consider a reduction of public road frontage for proposed lots 1 through 3 from 75 feet to 7 feet per lot. Each of the proposed lots would exceed the minimum lot size for R30 and would meet other zoning criteria such as setbacks, impervious surface. And there would be one driveway to serve all 3 lots. We would ask the Board of Commissioners to conduct a public hearing to consider the proposed reduction to minimum public road frontage. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to this item? Mr. Chairman, there are 6 people opposed. So all those wish to address the board? One earlier? There's 6 now? Okay. Let the record show there's 6 people opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Okay, Mr. Sams, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for allowing this case to go forward before breaking for lunch. My name's Garvis Sams, and I'm with the law firm of Sams, Larkin, Huff, and Bally, and represent John and Mona Lloyd, who live on this property that you're seeing outlined in yellow on the this overlaid aerial photograph. This is 5257 Hadaway Road. I have Mr. and Mrs. Lloyd's son, John Lloyd, for whom I do a lot of work here with me today. You've seen a lot of applications that he's had come forward, all of which have been approved by you, which have absolutely nothing to do with this application. But nevertheless, John is here from a technical perspective. Also, who's been here all day is, up until about 30 minutes ago, is Bob Beard. Bob is one of your former county attorneys, and he represents the neighbors contiguous and immediately to our west, Mr. and Mrs. Blizzard, and represents our neighbors that are contiguous immediately to the south, who are Mr. and Mrs. Leonard. So we have, I've handed out to you a letter. It's not your typical letter of agreeable stipulations and conditions in that it is addressed to Mr. Beard and his clients, but it addresses and resolves all of the concerns that they have, except with respect to one, which I'd like to cover with Cornelius' help with the mic and the pointer. So this is the site plan that was filed with the other business application. Again, to orient you, this is Mr. And Mrs. Lloyd's house here. This is Mr. and Mrs. Blizzard's house here. Mr. And Mrs. Leonard live here, and there's 2 other properties to the south of the Leonard's property. Mr. Leonard's property is served by this driveway. Is depicted as a 25-foot driveway, but he owns fee simple title to this, so it's not an easement. He actually owns fee simple title. It ranges anywhere from 8 to 11 feet for an average about 9 feet in width, even though it's denominated as a 25-footer, but that's how Mr. and Mrs. Leonard get to their property. Mr. and Mrs. Blizzard have, in a similar fashion, their own driveway, like Mr. and Mrs. Lloyd, but they also have an access easement. It is denominated as 25 feet in width. Again, it averages about the same in width as does the easement or the property serving Mr. and Mrs. Leonard. But it traverses in this fashion, going down the western side of the Blizzard property, crossing just at a small point here, which is the bottom of my client, the Lloyd's property. And it serves the 2 properties that are south of the Leonard property. This is the same thing that you just saw, although it's overlaid with an aerial photo, which shows as-built current circumstances in terms of the positioning of Mr. and Mrs. Lloyd's house, the Blizzard house, and the Leonard's house here, you can see as well. What Mr. and Mrs. Lloyd proposed is adding lots, the 3 lots here, they range in size from 40,153 to 62,249 square feet. So as Mr. Peterson said, they all exceed the R30 requirements, which is what these properties are all zoned. You'll see in the letter that we've agreed to several things. First of all, as depicted here, the utilization of a 75-foot undisturbed buffer with respect to Mr. Leonard, who has a very nice property and very good privacy back there. And then we've agreed, the letter says, because that's what we originally thought Mr. and Mrs. Blizzard wanted, which would be a 10-foot natural maintained buffer along this property line. But what we've agreed to now is a hybrid of that, and this is a correction or an addition to the letter, and that is we will have a 125-foot fence that goes from here down to here, and then an additional 32 feet of fence about down to this point here. The specifications of the fence are going to be to match the fence that Mr. and Mrs. Blizzard has, and to be quite specific with that, it includes a 4-rail fence, and the rails are 1x6 rough sawed lumber, 4 feet in height, set in concrete. Of course, we've made that letter with respect to landscaping, fencing, and other issues subject to the district commissioner review and approval. But I have Mr. Beard's permission to articulate what I just said with respect to the combination fencing, and then the rest of the way down, this will be a natural buffer. As you can see, it is heavily treed. As you can also see, there is a stream that traverses a portion of this property, ending up in a lake there. There are some issues regarding stormwater management that emanate upstream and end up in this subdivision here. So we're not creating any more stormwater. In fact, we've got a pass-through situation that will help it immensely. And as you can see by the letter, the way we've got the houses set up are with infiltration systems and independent flow wells, which will be maintained by the property owners. Mr. and Mrs. Lloyd are going to build their new house back here, and the balance of it will be a family compound. That is their desire. That is their goal. This is a subdivision called Foxworth Subdivision. I've spoken with many of the folks in there. I'm not sure, maybe some of the folks here today are within that subdivision. But as you can see, you can see where the Lloyd's house is now. All the other homes will be substantial removed. There's a great deal of lineal footage between where the homes will be and where the existing homes are. So that is what we are asking for. Well, no, that's what we agreed to. What we're asking for is simply this, and that's a reduction in the required road frontage in order to build these 3 homes. There are a veritable plethora of examples where this has been done along the Hathaway Road corridor, and I told Commissioner Weatherford I'd provide him with the V numbers for those, but in my haste last night being in Powder Springs, I did not do so, but I can put my hands on those easily. Suffice it to say that all those decisions were made by the Board of Zoning Appeals up until February, when you not took it away from, but you decided to undelegate that responsibility of reducing road frontage and the ability to be able to reduce lot sizes directly to you as a Board of Commissioners. So that's why this variance is coming to you in the form of an other business application. So we do ask that you approve this based upon the agreements we've reached with the most affected contiguous neighbors and based upon their representations and Mr. Beard's agreements. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Weatherford.
Thank you, Mr. Sams. Is there anybody else in support of this other business? Is there anyone else in support of this other business? Seeing none, I'll now open the floor for 10 minutes for those who are opposed to this other business.
I know they're on the way. While they're on the way, let me show you one more thing, Mr. Chairman. It's very quick, but I want you to and the folks that are coming to understand, because it was a component of our discussions. This is the same property that we've been looking at, although turned on its axis, it looks a little more logical. This is what, right now, the Lloyds could do under the county regulations for R30, is to have these 4 lots build a road, have detention, so they can do that without us asking for a reduction in road frontage. It just not in keeping with what they want, and nor is it in keeping with what the Blizzards or Leonards want. And I'm done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, now the 10 minutes for those who are in opposition.
Good morning. My name's Susan Shoemaker, and I'm a property owner. Let's see if I can show you. Well, my home is not shown on there. My home is further down. I'm one of the 2 houses that uses the easement across the, I guess it's Lazard property. And my concern, well, and I'm speaking for my next door neighbor too, who wasn't able to be here today. My main concern is if there's could you put this one back up? Or, no, not that one. I don't know which half. The first one that shows.
Well, he's got the GIS, which is there. He can locate your property a lot easier.
Okay. What I want to show, this is my road coming right down here. And curves right here. Our road, we spent thousands of dollars on here. My next door neighbor, we're supposed to be the only 2 people on that road. We paid for it. We've got a storm drain here. All of this used to be lake bed. I'd just like to show that.
See where my hand is, you're talking about right along here, where
Yes.
this is your house.
Yes.
Can you see it here better? These are lots behind him. This
Okay.
you're seeing now.
I'm here.
This
There's
is you.
here.
Okay, okay.
That's what it
So I can follow you when you talk.
Okay. All right. Well, my easement starts on the Lazar's property and comes down. Oh, I'm sorry. My property starts up at the Hadaway Road at the Lazar property, and it comes down here. And as you get right here, if you'll back up just a little bit, right at that corner, right at the point, all of that to the right used to be a lake bed. And it is absolutely full of, beauty and wildflowers and all that. But my concern is where our road crosses just a little bit further up before you get there, we have a storm drain that runs under our driveway that takes all the storm water from up there on Hadaway Road, and it goes under our road into that lake bed. Because of that, and it's a lot of drainage at times, and it has flooded. We're worried because of the disturbance of that land where that lake bed been, that our water's going to back up and it's going to end up washing our driveway away. And we spent a ton of money on it. The other issue that I have also is the driveway. The people on that very first lot past that property right there on the right, and I think they're maybe here today too, they already have their propane gas delivered down our easement to their property. I don't know why they don't use their driveway, but they prefer to do that, and it's tearing our driveway up. We're concerned that these other people building over there, even though they're going to have their own driveway, may decide to do the same thing and bring their things in through the back property. Again, tearing up our road, and we've patched it so many times just because of that propane truck that jumps the asphalt onto their back property there. So, it's the flood waters and washing away our driveway, and also possible extra use on the driveway. We've also had people that were going to their house, the first house where his arrow is there, park in our driveway. Just park there for a party and go through the woods to their house, and have kept me from getting to my house at night when I'd had a really long day. So I'm really concerned about our roadway, and the floodwaters. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is George Varnell, and I live in Foxworth, which is the adjacent community to the property we're talking about. And our issue is not so much the driveway, although it is an issue, but the same as the lady that just talked about, stormwater. The situation in Foxworth right now is that our retention pond, which is, it's on the map slightly down and over to the right, that retention pond is operating, and the stormwater system of Foxworth is operating at absolute max. And the reason we know that is we've had roads cave in already on Bugle Sound Way as a result of excessive stormwater not draining as it should into the retention pond. I live bordering that retention pond. Half of my backyard is in a 100-year flood zone, and yet it floods about 3 times every year, almost up to my driveway. And I've spoke to the county DOT, and they've been out and looked, and they say that the situation with our existing Foxworth water retention or water system for stormwater is at max. And if you look down in some of the drainage manholes, you'll see that water stands there instead of draining. And it's because when the whole subdivision was laid out, there was some error in terms of the way the water would drain. So the other thing that is an issue, and we'll go to this chart right here, please, is the fact that the property on lots 2 and 3, as it currently stood in the former chart, is heavily buffered. One of those buffers is a state buffer, one is a county buffer.
Excuse me, this is not what is proposed right here. Can you show the other one?
I'm sorry?
This is not what is proposed. This is what they could propose without any permission from us. This is what they could build.
Yes.
This is what he's showing is erroneous.
Yes, I
This is,
understand.
no, what I'm telling you is that's not what they're building. This is,
Go to the other one. Go to the.
no, take that one away. Another one. Yeah, there you go.
Second.
That's it.
Shows it with all the trees.
Yep.
The lower 3 lots are heavily wooded, and they are contained primarily with buffers. One state buffer, one county buffer, and another buffer. I don't know who originated it. But if those buffers are compromised in any way, it will only aggravate the problem. And I have not seen any plan or anything that assures me that what I heard mentioned as far as stormwater management will help or avoid any other excess coming into the Foxworth retention pond. And then that pond is where all of this goes. So what we're doing, if we followed this plan, was taking the chance that they'd be able to contain the stormwater at the risk of further damaging the Foxworth stormwater system. And so that is of great concern to us, given the fact that the county has already been there and said that this system cannot take any more stormwater. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else that'd like to speak in opposition? Is there anybody else that'd like to speak in opposition? See none. Commissioner Weatherford.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
I'll say, who do we have?
Sorry? Did we have one more in opposition? Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Randall Spencer, and I'm a resident of the Foxworth neighborhood. I live at 887 Foxworth Drive as well. As my neighbor just mentioned here, it is our concern as far as the drainage water is concerned here. Point out to the area here. Is there a way I can point to that? You want? Oh, yes. Yeah, just want to use the pointer here. Okay, if you go up to where your pointer is here, that's my house there. So we've already noticed, and my neighbor Scott, he lives just to the house just down from here. We've already noticed when there is heavy water that you do get drainage that's coming across that area here, going down the neighborhood and then going into that pond area. It depends upon the amount of water and obviously the type of storms that we have here. If those buffers are, again, compromised, as my neighbor mentioned here, we would see an increase in that. When I first moved to that neighborhood, the significance of the neighborhood was that, and with my realtor, that there was going to be no building across from my backyard that will remain wooded, which is very nice. And again, Mr. Lloyd and I did speak, and he said that he did appreciate the fact that that would remain wooded for some time. And he thought that the neighbors in Foxworth had gotten much enjoyment out of that, which we have. But with the intent on building more lots there without any information to the homeowners on the longer standing time point of what was the intended plan, are these lots going to just be zoned that way, or will there be actual homes on those lots? We had no indication of that. If that was the case, then we would like to know if there's a plan on development, and that was not presented to us at all. But I think that the more urgent problem is maintaining of the natural environment there, and also addressing the water situation here for that. So thank you for your time very much, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in opposition? Okay, now Commissioner Weatherford.
All right, so not sure who we have here from Stormwater. I can't see, but, oh, there we go.
We have Dave Braden from Stormwater Management Division.
Yes, sir. Would you explain the process for any land disturbance permit, sir, regarding stormwater, et cetera, and have you considered this and looked at this site?
The whole process, or?
No, sir.
Just
Give me the, how about the Cliff Notes?
It's almost 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Well, first let me step back to the plan that was shown that showed what could be done.
Correct.
Which is the whole reason we're here, trying to vary the lot width. So because the frontage is not wide enough to have 75 feet of frontage for each lot, if you're going to do 4 lots, you're going to need to have a variance for that. If they were to come in and just put in a road down the property line with a right-of-way, then they can get those frontages off of that new right-of-way and meet all the county's requirements. So that plan, as was said, that could be done today. Come in and pull an LDP for that. They would have to provide stormwater management, as was shown on that plan. They'd have to deal with the stream buffers, as was shown on that plan. This is trying to get same number of lots, but without having to put in all of that road infrastructure. So
but they
on one hand,
have to meet.
on one hand, stormwater would support that because it's less road that's going to be put in, less cul-de-sac, so it'd be less runoff into Foxworth.
And it would still have to meet stormwater specifications.
And again, but this plan, it would still have, and my comments reflected, it still has to meet stormwater requirements. They're going to have to provide stormwater management for the development and make sure that we do not increase peak discharges into the Foxworth.
So in your opinion,
right?
What could be built is worse than what they're attempting to build
It
as
would
far
be-
as stormwater is
runoff
concerned?
volume, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Sir, yeah, please.
Yeah, so thank you. In the other zoning plan where they could build today, it looked like there was a detention facility at the bottom corner.
Basically the southwest corner, right, or southeast corner, sorry.
That wouldn't have addressed the stormwater runoff that the neighbors have concern about?
Yes.
It looks like it was positioned to catch that flow there.
It was.
So Is it possible that with this new development that they're still gonna have to put in a detention facility per the comments I'm hearing?
Yes,
Even though it
either a
wasn't
single
drawn?
one or multiple ones on the site,
Okay,
yes.
so just because it wasn't drawn doesn't mean it's not.
That's correct. It's not shown, it
considered-
is not shown on the plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it would, that might change the way the lots were laid out?
Lots can probably lay out the same, but if you'll note my comments, I think they're in your comments there, that the layout must provide for a stormwater management facility on its own parcel, or if it's a single one, if it's individual ones, it'll be on each lot. But that we'd have to address that in plan review. But the lot layout could remain the same.
With the 20-foot at the bottom?
20-foot coming access down to it. We need to have there needs to be access to that pond for it to be maintained.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And Commissioner,
Yes, ma'am.
so the way that is, it would just, they would just drive down that existing easement. Oh, I see it now. I see that driveway.
That's the
Okay.
one that's existing. They're gonna put another one inside.
Yeah, there's going to be another one parallel to that one, right? And to address an additional comment with the individual that lives adjacent to the east of the property there in Foxworth, the new driveway would be able to provide a barrier so that they could put curb and direct the runoff that's now sheet flowing across and get it down to whatever stormwater management winds up being provided.
Thank you. I think it's suffice to say that whatever goes in there, whether it's can be built as it's already zoned, or if this goes forward, stormwater management will be involved heavily and the stormwater concerns will be mitigated. And that's part of our land disturbance process. So, addressing the other issue, which is the fact that they're asking for other business to actually reduce the road frontage. This is another one of those we just had, for example, in the last one where it's set back, what's front, what's rear. The fact is there's already on this area 2 existing driveways that service homes on a flag lot that are already lower than the new the standard of 75 feet. And I have gone down Hadaway and others, and there are many other, there's at least 5 other examples of the same thing, of flag lots. So I think there's a letter of the law, and if you're going to build a home fronting a certain roadway, then you have to have certain road frontage. But this, in fact, is a flag lot getting to multi-acre lots behind it that really has no bearing on the road frontage. All we need is access to it. As far as the other comments regarding the road that's already there to the west that is being used by others, I don't know who owns that, who has the right of way or whatever, but that's certainly nothing to do with this particular application. What we're here to decide, if I understand it, Mr. Peterson, is the fact whether we want to reduce the road frontage per code from 75 to this. And what is your comments on that, sir?
Commissioner Weatherford, the staff would recommend that the Board of Commissioners approve the request subject to stormwater management comments.
All right, the other question that I then have is the stipulation letter provided Mr. Sams to Mr. Beard on behalf of his client. Is that any of our business, or do we need to enter this as part of a stipulation, or do I have the right to do that? I guess that would be Ms. Blair's. There's a stipulation letter not addressed to this board regarding some agreements they made with the adjoining neighbor that really has nothing to do with this application as far as I can tell.
We have done it both ways. We have had private agreements that have been presented to the board that have not been part of the zoning conditions, and we've also done it as zoning conditions. If we make it a zoning condition, obviously, it's something that we then have the ability to enforce. I don't have a copy of that letter, so I'm not sure what those conditions are as to the enforceability of it.
I guess my question is not mine for, this is something they worked out between neighbors, and I don't feel comfortable in adding this stipulation. I believe we're here to decide whether or not this is an exception to our rules.
And that's, I mean, we've done it that way, and that's.
Unless you tell me differently, I guess.
I'm not going to tell you differently. I mean, I think it's perfectly fine. As we have right now, we're looking simply at the road frontage.
Correct, that's the only issue, is it not?
So I think it's perfectly fine saying,
Okay.
addressing just that singular issue.
Mr. Sams, did you want to?
I was just going to say, we're fine if it becomes a matter of the public record, and I think Mr. Beard and his clients are probably looking for that. As amended by my explanation of the combination of the fence and the buffer.
Okay. All right, I haven't said that. Any comments? I'm ready to
Commissioner
make a
Burrow
motion.
has a question. Mhm.
This is R30, so is the existing house gonna be replaced?
No,
So they'll have 5 lots?
no, they've got 4
5
lots.
homes?
Yeah, 4 lots. There's 1 existing lot and then 3 new lots behind it.
In each would be an acre
Well,
to
this
acre and a
shows
half.
4 and an existing house with the pool.
Where does, no,
Is that not a house? Lloyd tract and a pool,
I don't know which one you're looking at.
the very top one.
Is that the same as this plan
That's
right
the
here?
existing house.
That's what they could do now without zoning. I'm looking at the one with all the trees, there's 4 lots. And then an existing lot.
That's 4 lots altogether, so it's the existing house and 3 new lots.
Okay. Is that not a
That's where he lives.
existing house?
That's where he lives.
Okay,
That's a-
1, 2, 3, 4,
No,
5. I'm confused.
No, that's just one house right there. That's just the lat long for it. There's a pool behind it right there.
Yeah.
And then
That's a
3 more lots that are R30 or greater.
Okay, so this one's the 40, that goes
Yes,
with that?
that's
Okay.
correct. Yep.
It's big enough for chickens.
So how many units per acre is this overall? With
It's
the
probably
adding-
less than 1 unit per acre, Commissioner Burrow, because the lots are all over an acre in size.
Yeah, and they're all over the
It's
30,000.
0.87
million.
units per acre.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Yours for
Thank you,
motion.
sir. I make a motion, we approve other business item number 40 with the addition of the letter dated September 17th from Mr. Garvis Sams to Mr. Robert Beer Esquire regarding those stipulations have been agreed to between his client and Mr. Sams and his client.
Good?
That's it.
Okay, you have a second anywhere?
I'll second it.
Okay.
But I'll just share, I'm having heartburn about this one here. I'm having heartburn about it. I think the original plan, I like with the actual roadway going into the 3 homes. I'm sorry. Somebody, okay. I like the plan where they could have come in without even coming to other business. The only, the greatest benefit I see with the current plan is that the stormwater impact is lessened without all the asphalt. But I also see now they have more traffic coming in their backyard versus if that road was on the opposite side, they will be facing, their backyard would be facing the rear of the other homes.
This is family compound. They're gonna build a house.
I'm sorry.
The Lloyds are building another house back there.
This configure, so they're gonna be using just this easement road.
Correct.
And there's gonna be 3 additional homes coming in.
That's correct.
One of them's related to the family.
That's right.
I've never seen anything like this, and you already have that situation going on the other side.
And beside it, yeah. There are additional flag lots, so there's several of them on Hadaway that way because they got, the advantage, and I see what you're trying to, and maybe if I can help first. The advantage that I see is the lots that they're proposing are acre to acre and a half as opposed to 3/4 acre for the 3. The rest of that has to come in roads around, stormwater, all that. So they're getting 3 larger, almost twice as large lots with one access road to all of them, similar to what's already in the area.
Would the other zoning result in more houses? Could it, the other zoning, if they came in without other business, would it result in more houses being built? Would they get an additional home? It's the same number of units.
Well, the plan they're showing, that's right here with the public road, is for 4 lots total.
Same thing.
It's 4 lots either way, just bigger.
She's still thinking.
I just,
Okay.
yeah, no.
I'll be honest, I have the
additional
same
comments.
concerns as she does.
I just,
So,
I think the runoff, if they're, when they go through plan review, that the stormwater management, detention pond, whatever's required will be addressed.
Correct.
And they meet the lot size.
Well, I think all the facts are out there, I'm just waiting for us to make sure, before I call a question, that any last chance to ask the last questions from the board. I want to make sure that the board has the ample opportunity to ask all the questions.
What's staff's recommendation?
Commissioner Burrow, the staff would recommend that the board approve the applicant's request, subject to stormwater management comments.
See, if you look at the development around it, it looks like you have, it looks like maybe for a time this was appropriate, maybe before all the additional development. I don't know which happened first, but it just seems like that area is moving towards a more formal, up to county standard road system type of development. This just looks like something just back out when perhaps there wasn't that much of a controlled form of development. I can't see, or I can see perhaps how it may have come to be. I just can't see continue that here. Not when I'm looking at the development patterns around it. I almost think, again, what could be done without coming in for other business would be more in line with the trend that's right in this area. Or the character, I can't say trend, I don't know what happened first, but it looks more in line with the development pattern that's on both sides of this.
Okay, we ready? I'm going to go ahead and call the question then. And it's tied 2-2. And Commissioner Rod is, Commissioner Cupid and Chairman Boyce in opposition, and Commissioner Rod is excused. So with that, do we have any more?
We got to hear it again. Zoning hearing.
We probably will. We hear it next month with Commissioner Rod, right? Right? So, okay. Anything else? We're done?
That completes your agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we're adjourned.